What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast. It is Monday. We are talking UFC 264 right here at home on Pub Sports Radio. What is up, everybody? The break week is over. We've got our MMA back. We're back in action. We've got some degenerate shit to bet on, and I could not be happier, especially with as awesome of a card as we have for UFC 264. I feel a little spoiled. We're going to go on another run here of a lot of MMA, and it's going to be a long time till I get another break week, so you best believe I'm amped up. I'm ready to go. I'm pumped up to be back, and I hope you are too. We've already got 64 people in the chat live this evening. How's everybody doing? Do me a favor. If you're on social media, if you're on Twitter, this is UFC 264. Big week, so smash that like or retweet button for me, especially here on YouTube. Hit that like button. That helps get the word out about the show, gets other people in here to chat and hang out and talk with us. We've got Muhammad Boston in the chat first saying, big boy bets only, no parlays. That's right. We're going to be throwing some hammers if we find the right spots. We've got Matthew Moore, Grateful Dude, Dog MMA. We've got Joshua Lazar. We have, the chat is going nuts on me. Skywalker DFS in the house. Hayden Schneiderman. We've got F. Carrillo, G. Fawns, Kung Dao, Chicken, Joseph Nussbaum, MMA locker room buddy in the house with the lunch money. What's up? James V, Diamond Hands, Hammer, Robbie, Nigel Lee, Peter Houghton, Bobby, Time Bucks, Tajiki Bay. What's up, buddy? How's everybody doing? Here we go. Everybody's hanging out, and we're starting to fill this bad boy in. Shane 766, my friend, I'm going to put you up just because the glorious Minnesota Vikings logo that you've got there. Looking for some good action on the Vikings this season. Looking forward to it. Let's go. Brass Knuckle in that chat. Big Bird PH Ali Akmil. Woo! All right. I am amped up. If y'all couldn't tell, I'm ready to go. So real quick, let's get this off the board from the get-go. We've got Game 4 of the NHL playoffs, and y'all know I'm a complete degenerate. I can't help myself. I bet other shit. What I'm looking at tonight is the unders. Under 1.5 in the first period, minus 145. No goal in the first period, plus 280. I'm going under 5 for the full game at plus 120. And then I do the draw at plus 290, as well as the no goal in regulation. That's right, I'm saying 0-0 going into overtime, and that's 50-1 for just a little sprinkle. Favorite bet on the card is that under 1.5 at minus 140. I think we see lockdown hockey tonight. Enough about the hockey. We're talking mixed martial arts. So we don't need to recap anything. We didn't have a week last week to talk about. Obviously, it was break week. So G-Funds, how dare you? How dare you? We are a fringe playoff team every single season. If we can just move a couple pieces together, we will make a run. I promise you that. And we made some good off-season moves, picked up some young studs. You watch, G-Funds. You watch. All right. Okay. So we've got UFC 264 going this weekend, and we are going to kick the night off solo. I've had a little bit of trouble with some guests lately. Obviously, nothing against anybody. Shit happens. Life happens. Family first. It's, everybody's got stuff going on. But for 3 weeks in a row, I've had problems getting my guests lined up. So we're going to start the show solo, and I should have somebody jumping in a little bit later on to kind of help us out as we get into the meat and potatoes of the card. But for the first 3 or 4 breakdowns, it's just going to be your boy. And, of course, I'll be talking with the chat as we rock through it. So let's get this bad boy rolling, shall we? First fight of the night. We are talking these boys. We have got Yaozong Yu taking on Alen Amedovski. And I am really torn up about this fight because Yaozong Yu is only 3-2. He's got 5 professional fights. Just 5 fights to his professional name. Not a lot of experience. You don't see people getting into the UFC at that stage of their careers that early very often. So the UFC must have seen something in this kid, except he's gotten his ass beat in his first 2 UFC fights since he's gotten here. So hasn't really pounded out all that well for him. Amedovski 8-2. He was 8-0 undefeated getting into the UFC. That's a little more like it. That's a little more what we're used to seeing. But he dropped his first 2 UFC fights right off the bat. So same thing. We've kind of got a battle of busted prospects here. Who hasn't fought in 3 years, right? Now, a lot of people coming off the COVID layoff. We see that a lot across the board. And he's a young kid. He's young, and we're gonna more than likely expect to see some improvements from him. He's only 26 years old, so that time off can pay massive, massive dividends for this kid. But what we saw from him when he was in the cage the last time is he's got a very active lead hand. He does keep his guard up, but he gives up ground. He moves backwards a lot, and not like a matador striking, return, counter-punching style. He just gets walked down. He gives up the center of the cage. He does attack front chokes whenever opponents try to get in on takedowns on him. He threatens those submissions, and he doesn't move his head. He's incredibly hittable, and that's something that you would expect to see change from a young fighter, but we've seen other people not get that out of the way. We've seen them not make those adjustments before. So I can't bank on Yaozong making improvements when I haven't seen the kid in 3 years. Alen Amedovski, 8-2, coming in here, fighting out of Extreme Couture. He's another layoff guy, hasn't fought since 2019, and he's got a 100% knockout rate. Like, this guy only wins if he's knocking you out. He went to war with John Phillips. Now, if anybody remembers the Welsh wrecking machine, John Phillips, you do not go to war with John Phillips. Like, that's the one thing you're not allowed to do with that guy when it comes to MMA. Now, shout out to my guy Rockstar Z. He's saying somebody needs to get John Phillips in bare knuckle boxing, and I could not agree more. He would be the BKFC champion overnight, and you would never dethrone that man. He's got ridiculous power, but he can't play the ground game, so everybody just takes him down. Well, Alen Amedovski came out and said he was going to knock him out and go power for power, and yeah, he's not going to do well against that particular opponent with that style. And he sure paid for it, but he did get saved by the referee. I want to point this out here, that Amedovski's actually got a half-decent chin. The ref saved him, so he wasn't like flatlined, out cold, life-changing, beating style of knockout. It wasn't quite that bad. He does keep his hands low. He baits people in for these gunfights because that's where he generally thrives. He fires from the hip. He's got spinning elbows. And he really, when he fought Krzysztof Jotko, he struggled with the grappling. So we've seen him have a similar hold to like John Phillips, where if you can get in on this guy, take him down, put him on the mat, put him on his back, he's going to have a real tough time with that. Now, Alen Amedovski, even though he's the smaller fighter, is actually going to have a 2-inch reach advantage here in this fight. And Yaozong Yu is the Twitter dog of the week. I have seen nothing but love for this kid throughout basically every single person online that I've checked out. Like, anybody giving out picks, anybody giving out their opinions, this kid is dog money all day, and they're betting the shit out of him. He opened up about plus 142, and he's bet down to about plus 125 at this point. So the money is moving on the dog side, and I'll be completely honest, guys. I would be extremely tempted to stand in front of the market at this point and take a buy low spot on Alen Amedovski. Now, I don't know that I'm actually going to get to the window with that one, because this is a spot where neither of these guys are trustworthy. I'm a big fan of betting on kids that are improving. So someone like Yaozong Yu is someone who should be improvement, should be getting better, lots of room to improve and go up from here. But I got to see it first. You know, with a 3-year layoff, we're just assuming. You know what I mean? And I don't like making bets based off of assumptions. Alen Amedovski is a guy that I know can hit. I know he can crack. And if Yaozong Yu doesn't do anything differently, if he doesn't move his head, he's going to be right there for the pickings. Like, Alen Amedovski is not a guy that you want to be stationary against, because he will crush your skull in with that ridiculous power that he has. So I'm leaning towards Alen Amedovski, but do I really want to pay, you know, minus 150, minus 145? Like, that's kind of the ballpark across the market that price tag is in. I don't necessarily know that I want to lay that price with Alen Amedovski, because realistically, if he wins, he finishes. He's shown that in his record, right? 100% knockout rating. So if you're going to take Alen, probably take the under 2.5, probably take the knockout prop. The total here set at 1.5, it looks like, on the initial opener, minus 150 to the over, plus 110 to the under 1.5. I'd be kind of tempted in the under on this one because either Hugh doesn't make any improvements and gets clipped by Alen Amedovski, or he does make those improvements, and then he probably is too much to handle for Amedovski the other way. So that's kind of the way I'm looking here on this one, but I don't have a very confident feel or read on it because, like I said, massive question marks on both guys. Neither guy with a proven track record, and neither guy has been in action for so long that I don't really feel comfortable betting on him, which sucks. I like to have action on the very first fight of the night, and this week doesn't look like that's going to happen. We've got Nicholas in the chat saying no distance minus 205 doesn't seem bad. I kind of agree with that. That does seem like a nice spot to just basically say this thing ain't going. Seems like the way to me. Let me see here. Trying to catch up with the chat here. Yeah, about minus 160. And Bobby Timebuck saying exactly. Jotko. Yeah, that's a very valid point. Like I said, we're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel here with this one. I just hope it starts off with a bang. You know what I mean? This is obviously the bottom of the barrel of the UFC. Neither of these guys has anywhere to go at this exact point. So let's at least hopefully start the night off with like a KO or a submission, some kind of a big payday. Hey, shout out to my guy here, Tajiki Bay, with the donation. A little appreciation for all the entertainment, positive vibes you bring. Thank you so much, Tajiki. Without people like you that are here to hang out with me and sharing those positive vibes, it wouldn't be a thing. So I appreciate you very much. And anything tipped here in the live chat while we're doing the show is going to go to support Pub Sports Radio, who I am exceedingly grateful for having me host on their channel. It's been a wonderful relationship, and it supports all the amazing shows we do here for you guys each and every week, daily, in fact, for free. So much appreciated. Yeah, Leon, the under 2.5 seems like not a bad spot. It's going to be pricey, but I don't mind it whatsoever. Kung Dao Chicken saying a FAP fight. For those of you who may be new to the Die Hard MMA podcast, FAP is fireball and popcorn, and it just means we're going to sit back, take a break, get a snack, drink break, something along those lines. That's exactly what this fight probably looks like, is one that you basically just want to avoid. And Matthew Moore with some serious logic here. There's no such thing as a lock, especially in MMA, when people can slip on a banana peel and one punch changes the entire thing. It's not like any other sports where you got to chip away at it. This one mistake, and it costs you the entire night. Jeannie, what's up, buddy? I'm doing well. How are you? Thanks for hanging out tonight. All right. Yes, fat means something different in most people's household. You got to thank my boy Boston Nick MMA for that one. All right, so we got the first breakdown of the night out of the way. We're mostly expecting not to do much with it, but second fight of the night here, we've got Zhalgas Zhumagulov taking on Jerome Rivera. Master Z back in the house here this weekend. So what we are looking at here on this one is kind of a back against the wall fight, I think, for both fighters, really. Zhalgas Zhumagulov may be one of the best fighters with an 0-2 record in the game right now. He's much better and much worse than he should be all at the same time. He's training at ATT, a record of 13-5, and this man has cut his teeth on the Russian regional scene, which any of you who watch MMA more so than, other sports and stuff like that, you may know. They don't mess around in Russia, right? Like that is no small feat to be doing the dang thing over in Russia. So I have nothing but respect for what he's done and what he's brought to the table, but he is a massive favorite here in this spot. And I know I should probably break down the fight before I start talking numbers, but Zhalgas Zhumagulov is minus 385. Jerome Rivera is plus 290. So Zhalgas, very well-rounded. He's durable. He moves well side to side, and he's arguably got a win over Julian Paiva. I feel like they got the decision wrong on that one. I will stand by that. Every single time we talk about Master Z, I'll point out the fact that I don't think his record is the way it should be. He's got good high volume. He likes to work the legs and the body of his opponents, which is something that I think goes a little underrated here in this game. And he averages a full significant strike per minute more than Jerome Rivera does. And again, I can get into the stats a little bit later, but when these guys get in there, you think of Jerome as a volume striker, stays on the outside, that kind of thing. And Zhalgas gets a full significant strike per minute in more than him. With his back against the wall here, 0-2 in the UFC, you got to think he's really going to put his best foot forward. And he's in fantastic shape. I mean, he's one of these guys that doesn't have a body type that, the fighters where you're like, damn, like that guy is a professional MMA fighter. Zhalgas doesn't have that. He's not built the same way, but boy, does he look in incredible shape this time around. An MMA locker room disagreeing with me here on the Paiva decision, and that's fine. That's okay, buddy. We can disagree on that. Jerome Rivera on the flip side of this thing, though, 10-5, and really struggling to hold a UFC roster spot here. He's coming off getting absolutely torched by my guy, Ode Osborne. Osborne is a guy that is underrated, fast hands, big power. So, yeah, he touched this kid. And Jerome Rivera has a chin issue. He's got a real problem. He stands tall. He does keep his guard up high, but he just cannot handle power punchers. If you can come in with some big heat, all it takes is one to put you down. He fires long, slow leg kicks, and he got really physically bullied against Figueiredo's little brother, Figueiredo Jr., and he tries to play the outside. The only problem is he really has no power threat. Like, Jerome Rivera isn't really capable of finishing people on the feet. He's got 0 knockouts. He's mostly a submission guy. Even if he kind of rocks you and hurts you, drags you to the floor, and then submits you from there, he just is never able to get off on the feet. So Zhalgas Zhumagulov is not going to be afraid of anything coming down the pipe from Jerome Rivera. But I would be remiss if I didn't talk to you guys about the big elephant in the room here, and that's the 6-inch reach advantage. Jerome Rivera has a ridiculous 6-inch reach advantage in this fight, and we are not in the apex. This is a big numbered pay-per-view card, and because of that, we're gonna be in the big cage. And if we're in the big cage, he's gonna be able to move. His stick and move style outside game is going to make it very, very difficult for someone short and stocky like Zhalgas Zhumagulov. I don't know that Zhalgas has the power to one-shot KO Rivera. He's going to need to take him down and ground and pound him out. He's going to need to try and chase him down, get the takedowns, get him up against the fence, bully him. If he can't do that, I think there's a decent chance that Jerome Rivera actually point fights him to a decision in this. And that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. My guy Leon got there before I did. Over is the play. And of course, my finger's not working. I'm clicking on everybody's comments while I'm trying to get there. I think that the over 2.5 is the spot here, because while Zhalgas Zhumagulov is totally capable of knocking people out, pounding them out of the octagon, he's going to need to get it on the ground. And you don't really want to go to the ground with Jerome Rivera. Long-ass legs. This kid's going to be able to sweep. He's going to be able to submit. That's going to be his best opportunity, his best option to get a win here, is getting a submission on the ground. So you don't want to play that game too much, but I don't think the Zhalgas can clip him and hurt him, knock him out on the feet. I think he's going to have to work him over. He's going to have to grind him against the fence. He's going to have to drag him to the floor. And if he can do that, then he absolutely can win and probably deserves the price tag that he's at. But Jerome, on the flip side of this thing, I don't see how he finishes Master Z. Yeah, he's got some slick submissions on him. I'll give him that. But you're not choking out Master Z, a guy who's been on the Russian regional scene and can take these guys down and grapple with them and get back up at will. His get-up game is next level. I just don't see it happening. And then on the feet, unless he eats a perfectly timed knee on his way in on a takedown, there's nothing that Jerome throws that's going to actually put Master Z out. He's incredibly durable. He knows how to dig deep and get in on those hips, get to the next level, survive if he's in trouble. He's very, very savvy. So this is kind of a weird spot because it's dog or pass based on the line. With the value, the betting line, yeah, exactly. MMA locker room right here, buddy. Minus 375 after 0-2. He's struggling, and here he is minus 300 on a big pay-per-view stage, giving up 6 inches of reach. I can't get behind that. It's dog or pass for me, but I think the over is pretty much the way to go, in my opinion. Now I'm going to scroll back. I know a lot of you have been commenting here, and I want to try and catch up on what I can. Bobby's saying that Rivera stinks, which I can't, get too upset at that comment. John saying, lucky for him, Zhalgas is pillow-fisted. Yes, exactly. And Shadow Blood Pirate, we will get to those fights a little bit later, buddy. I've seen you put this comment in here a couple of different times. We request that you don't spam. The only real rules here are, no political talk, no racism. Get all that shit out of my chat. You will get banned and blocked for that. But spam is another thing that we don't tolerate. I know you're not spamming. You're trying to get an answer to your question. So we're just going to go through the whole card, man. So tune in later if you want to get to those, or sit tight. We will get there after we get through the entire card. Coach MMA saying Zhalgas decision is best. Again, I don't hate that. That definitely brings that price tag down for you if you're not looking to lay those big numbers. And Carlos Diaz, he is nothing special. Jerome is absolutely live with the stick and move, and that's what I'm seeing too. BP saying that Jerome should have lost his Dana White Contender Series fight, and that guy was small and struggled. Agreed. I was not impressed with his Dana White Contender Series fight at all. But Jerome didn't look as bad as I recalled him being. Not in the Ode Osborne fight, but the one before that. Was that his Dana White Contender Series fight? I don't remember. I got to go back and look. I took these notes a day or two ago when I was doing all that. I was doing all that tape study. So yeah, I mean that's basically the read here on that one, folks. I think that Jerome, believe it or not, is actually live here just because of that reach, just because of that movement, because he's got the big cage to operate in, and it's dog or pass on the money line. And My guy Nicholas here, absolutely right. Sometimes the best bet is no bet. If you don't want to take the dog, you probably should get out of there. Jerome was a prospect at some point. Why do you think the UFC gives him all these chances? I think Zhalgas is easier than all his last fights. Do or die. Yeah, Brass Knuckle, I can't argue that point either. I mean, both these guys know their back is against the wall. The 0-3 in the UFC is not a good place. You do not want to be there. There's a very good chance anybody goes 0-3, you lose your job, you don't get another shot. So, as much as I said Zhalgas Zhumagulov has his back up against the wall and he's going to bring the heat, the same is true for Jerome Rivera. So can't hate on that whatsoever. All right, we're going to go ahead and move this bad boy along, because I have probably spent way too much time talking about these first couple of fights that we may not even end up having any bets on. Just so you all know, this is a stacked card with a lot to talk about, especially once my guest hops on and gets with us. It's probably going to be a long night. So if you like MMA, buckle in, because we're going to be breaking the whole damn thing down. We're going to be here a while. If you like the short, quick, fast burst, this ain't it. Next fight up, we have got Omari Akhmedov taking on Brad Tavares. And this is such an interesting fight to me. Brad Tavares is a -175 favorite. You've got +140 on Omari Akhmedov on the flip side of this bad boy. And I came into this week. Now, you're going to hear this a couple of different times from me tonight, okay? I had some pre-existing assumptions about several of the fights this week. I came in fully expecting that I was going to be taking Omari Akhmedov in this spot as a big, fat, juicy underdog. I feel like he was very live in this position. And then I went back and I watched the tape, and I may be rethinking that. Now, all you guys know, I'm the dog hunter. I always look to make an argument for the dog. I want to play the plus money. I think once you lock that cage, the human element comes out, and people fighting for their families, their paycheck, their lives. You never know what's going to happen, so there's always more value on the dogs. Well, not always. There's a lot of time there's more value on the dogs than there are on the favorites, in my opinion, when it comes to MMA, because there's just so much that can happen. So it's really, it's tough for me when I decide that I'm on the favorite side, because I prefer to bet the underdogs. Now, Omari Akhmedov is 21-5. Brad Tavares is 18-7. Omari's training out of ATT, which we know is one of the premier MMA gyms in the world today, and he is a Russian grinder. This guy has zero problems making a fight boring, taking you down, keeping you there, causing a problem. He's got big power winging hooks, throws bombs on the feet. He's got a very sharp counter right hand, high-level wrestling, and a filthy, strong, heavy top game. Like, when he is on top of you, that's maybe the worst place you could ever be. Like, you do not want to be on your back underneath Omari Akhmedov. Very active with his ground and pound, stays busy, nasty offensive submissions, a tight squeeze, physically strong. This guy's one of these tank-style fighters that we like to talk about. And then he's got good submission defense to go with it. So if you are a submission guy and you want to try and take advantage of the fact that he's taking you down, nothing doing, because his submission defense is on point himself. He averages 2.63 takedowns per 15 minutes with a 49% accuracy. So that's nearly a takedown per round, and he's hitting half of them. That's a nice takedown ratio, and that's also a pretty solid accuracy rating under those circumstances. So you cannot doubt the style of offensive wrestling Omari brings to the table. Brad Tavares on the flip side of this thing, fighting out of Extreme Couture. This guy is a point fighting machine. Like, seriously. He almost doesn't knock out anybody. He's got like 2 knockouts on his record, but he is so slick on the feet. Manages range extremely well. He's got incredible takedown defense, strong hips. His balance is off the charts. Like, you do not get this man to the ground, it's next to impossible to take him down. And then it's even harder to keep him there. And this is really the point that drove home for me. I thought Omari was live. He's got the power. We have seen Brad Tavares. You know, if you go back to when Brad Tavares fought Tim Boetsch, that's like the best example of how this fight may play out. Omari Akhmedov is kind of a 2.0 version of Tim Boetsch, and I can see it being very, very similar. The big power hooks is what did Brad Tavares in that night. Someone who can hang in the grappling, hang on the feet, and then just land that one big power shot right behind the ear, and then it's night-night. That could absolutely happen. Omari Akhmedov is live from that perspective here in this spot. But Brad has to make a mistake and give him the opportunity to do that, because if Omari can't get him down, I think he's going to slow down. I think he's going to gas. If he runs out of gas in the second round because he cannot keep Tavares against the cage or on the floor, he's going to be easy pickings. And Tavares is actually looking much, much better recently. He fought guys like Israel Adesanya, and he didn't look like he belonged. He's a true gatekeeper. Like, once he takes that one little step down from the championship circle, he looks like a rock star. So I'm really feeling Brad Tavares, and I'm feeling Brad Tavares by decision in this spot. I just think Omari's not going to be able to keep him down, and I think that once he gets back up, he's going to make Omari pay. Now, Omari Akhmedov is a guy that is not easy to finish. If Brad decides that, you know, he's been working with Francis Ngannou all this time, maybe he's absorbed a little bit of that power, I could see him sitting down on his punches and making Omari pay. In fact, I might even do one of my infamous round 3 sprinkles on Brad Tavares to maybe get that finish deep in the fight when Omari doesn't have much left in the tank and he has no hope of getting the fight to the ground. That could be a spot to get a nice little sprinkle in. So let me see here. Fight goes to decision is minus 200, which, again, a little bit chalky, but I don't hate it. I don't think Omari is going to finish Brad unless he catches him with one of those big power hooks. Tavares, inside the distance, if you want to do that, is plus 240. But again, he doesn't really finish anybody. If he's going to do it, it's going to be late, so I wouldn't expect to see that. You can get plus 150 on Tavares by decision. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about, folks. That's the line value we look for here on this show, because you're taking a minus 175 favorite, minus 160 favorite, and you're turning him into a plus 150 dog. That's a full dollar swing to get his most appropriate method of victory in this fight. I like that. I think that's maybe the sweet spot here on this fight. Take him by decision, take that round 3 sprinkle. One will cover the other. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So that's where I'm looking. I think Brad Tavares, and as much as I thought that Akhmedov was live a little bit earlier, I'm really starting to backpedal on that with the stylistic matchup here. Tajiki Bey in the chat here with another donation. Thank you very much, my friend. Not many good betting spots this weekend. Agreed. The GOAT doesn't like when the MMA community loses money. Agreed. And we want to make some money this weekend. Bet Carlos Condit. Tajiki Bey has spoken. If you're looking to make some money this weekend, bet Carlos Condit. We will get to that fight in a little bit, my friend. Thank you very much for the tips. I'm sure everybody appreciates your take on the fight coming in here. Let's get caught up with this chat and see what everybody has to say. Peter saying the tape lies. I'm going to have to find your comment here, Peter, because you know that's one of my favorite phrases to use. That's one of my favorite in the books to use. So what about the tape lies? I will look for your next comment. Please let me know. Brass Knuckle saying Omari's got better takedowns than Shoeface. I agree. I absolutely agree. But Brad Tavares was never in any type of threatening position against Shoeface ever in that entire fight. And he's got this ridiculous takedown percentage over his entire UFC fight. So his entire UFC career, more so. Sorry about that. So yeah, I agree with you, but I still don't think it's going to be enough. Gooby saying even if Omari doesn't take Tavares down, he'll probably still placed up against the fence and Omari will rack up the points. Potentially, maybe so. But what we've been seeing recently is the judges are a little bit different than they were before, and they are not really valuing the blanket up against the wall style grappling. The point fighting is really doing a lot better. So if you're not scoring with the grappling, it's not really mattering quite as much. So if he's blanketing and then landing big power shots, I absolutely agree with you. Maybe the judges will look for him more that way. But if he's only blanketing up against the cage and then Tavares gets some shots off in the center before they go back to the fence, I still think they'll probably lean towards Tavares. Pain fight prediction saying I think Brad will defend the takedowns and outstrike Omari on the feet. Possible. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the exact read that I had on that one. Let's see here. Rolling through, getting caught up. I love it. We got 255 live viewers right now for the show, so thank you all so much for being with me tonight. But what that means is I got a lot of comments to try to keep up with, so I do apologize if I miss your comment. Of course, it's nothing personal. I'm trying to spotlight some of them so we can have a little bit of fan interaction as we go through. Aiden saying Omari all day. John saying Tavares going to starch him. That's a ballsy comment, John. I like the hot take. Billy in the house. What's up, buddy? How you doing? One of our other PSR personalities here hanging out. Lots of recency bias on Tavares due to the ACJ fight. Maybe, but I feel like we've seen him do that basically his entire career is my thing. Let's see. Yes, Breast Knuckle. He did lose to Tim Bosch, and that's why I was pointing out I feel like Omari was kind of live at the get-go because that was the fight that I think could mirror this one, definitely. Oh, I saw one. It jumped on me. The chat jumped on me. I'm going to find it. There we go. Nicholas. Omari by sub is 18-1. That's crazy to me. Seems like a sprinkle. That's the kind of spot I like to look for, Nicholas. That's an amazing call because Omari has that submission game. If he is able to get Brad down to the ground, you don't really knock Brad out. I would think the submission would be more likely than the KO personally. And even if he rocks him on the feet, the club and sub is always there. If you're going to bet Omari Akhmedov, I think decision is most likely, but there's definitely value at that 18-1 number. I love hot takes like that. Absolutely fantastic. We got a donation from NPC number 621. Thank you very much for the donation, my friend. Is Conor versus Poirier doesn't go the distance a good bet? I've got a bit of a hot take on the main event here on this one. So thanks to you very much for your donation. I will answer your question. I want to keep most of those later fight breakdowns for later in the show because we're going to get there. Conventional logic would say yes. The only problem is you're paying a really big price tag. But the way those two guys fight, it's hard to see it going the distance. My hot take is I think it is going over personally. So I would not be laying the chalk on fight not to go the distance myself. There's no such thing as a lock in MMA. And yeah, it's more than likely one of those two guys lands a bomb at some point. But I think we're going to see a little bit different of a matchup this time around. I think they're both going to make some adjustments and do things a bit differently. So real quick, before we go on to the next fight breakdown, everybody, I do need to shout out my OG sponsor, the people that believed in me way back when I had like 200 views per show, GOAT Capital Sports. You can find them at GOAT Capital _ over on Twitter. I can only do MMA, and I try to give you degenerate shit in NHL and NFL, and I'm trying MLB these days, but not very successfully. So if you need somebody to provide you a service, you can't listen to the breakdowns that are live here on Pub Sports Radio and things like that, you just want to pay somebody for picks, GOAT Capital does well in basically every sport under the sun. They have very reasonably priced packages, and they have a no-loss guarantee. If you buy their package for the week and you lose on their picks, they refund you for that week. So there's really no downside to taking their action. You pay for the subscription, you win money, or you get the subscription back if they have a rough week. Check them out. GOAT Capital Sports _ on Twitter. Let's move this bad boy along, shall we? We've got a lot of fights to talk about this evening. That is the wrong fight. We just talked about that. Let me go ahead and get this switched over here. I got a little too excited about my sponsor there to get us set up here for the next one. So next fight up, we got the ladies duking it out. We've got Jennifer Maia taking on Jessica I. And this is going to be the final early preliminary fight on this card. We've got 4 early prelims, 4 prelims, and then the main card. This one's pretty high stakes, folks. Believe it or not. Jennifer Maia just came off of her fight with Valentina Shevchenko. That did not go well for her, which can you expect much different? Valentina Shevchenko is an absolute beast. Jessica Ai had her shot with Valentina Shevchenko. That did not end well either, but she's trying to turn a corner, trying to turn a new leaf, get back to that title shot opportunity. We've got Jennifer Maia as a big minus 200 favorite with the comeback about plus 160, plus 170 on Jessica Ai. Jennifer Maia is 18-7. Ai is 15-9. Maia is a decently high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. She's extremely slick off of her back. That's how she won the fight with JoJo, is she snatched up that armbar. She's got very good control up against the fence. She likes to bully people up against the cage. Sharp hands, sharp boxing. She bobs her head really well. She does, she's doing this thing when she's coming in. So she definitely provides a moving target. And she likes to work the body. I noticed that she gets in, she does the rib roasters, gets you with the uppercut, lands some big knees to the body. You're banking that damage for later rounds. She wades in, and she really likes to operate in the pocket, is what I've noticed. She likes to put her boxing to work, even though her ground game really probably is her best attribute. When she fought Valentina Shevchenko, now there's not many people that can match Shevchenko, so I can't say much here, but she was physically controlled, just out-muscled by Valentina Shevchenko, and that's something that she has not faced in her career to this point. And bringing that point up, I want to make sure I go over her career here with you guys so I can kind of emphasize on that just a little bit more. Jennifer Maia has faced Alexis Davis, Liz Carmouche, Roxanne Modafferi, Caitlin Chookagian, and JoJo Calderwood. Now, Caitlin Chookagian, you're never out physicaling. She's going to stick and move you from outside, right? JoJo Calderwood, same story. She actually was getting roughed up by JoJo until she snatched up that armbar. Roxanne Modafferi, love the girl. She's a little bit getting towards the end of her career here, and when she can't physically bully her opponent, she loses. That's just how it goes. So Jennifer Maia got the win there. Alexis Davis, we know the chick is a grinder. We know she's tough. We know she's gritty. So that was a good win there. And then Liz Carmouche. Not many people are doing jack shit against my chick, the gorilla Liz Carmouche. We just saw her get a nasty KO win in her last fight. So no shame losing to the beast that is Liz Carmouche in that spot either. So fact of the matter is, Jennifer Maia has had a pretty excellent run to the title. And even though I've backed her in many situations along that run, it might have been a little fraudulent. She lost to Caitlin Chookagian, being out-finessed on the feet. Fair play. Caitlin does that to everybody. She lost to Liz Carmouche, being out-physicaled, muscly. Fair play. Everyone loses to Liz that way. She was getting beat by JoJo and snatched up an arm. She beat up Roxanne Modafferi, and she beat up Alexis Davis, 2 women that both have rough records in the UFC. Now, Jessica Ai, on the flip side of this thing, her big issue is really her takedown defense. She's got a 57% takedown defense rating, but Jennifer doesn't wrestle. Maia does not grapple, and that's the biggest thing that I'm really having a problem with here. Jessica Ai, the only way she loses is by decision. She's 15-9 with 7 of those 9 coming by decision. You've got to be able to out-smooth her. She is 1-3 in her last 4. And I know that sounds awful, but she lost to Valentina Shevchenko, the champion, via that viral head kick. She didn't look bad in the first round until that happened, if I'm being honest. She lost to Cynthia Calvillo because she got out-slicked on the feet by a smaller, faster fighter. And then she got out-slicked by JoJo Calderwood, and that was a pretty competitive fight. But she was able to out-move her and outspeed her. That's really what Jessica Ai struggles with, is someone who can out-finesse her. She's a bully in there, folks. She is big. She walks forward. She has forward pressure. She's extremely good in the clinch. Very powerful physically. She has excellent head position up against the cage, and she always looks to play the bully. She's going to have a 2-inch height and reach advantage here in this spot. She is much bigger than Jennifer Maia is. So if Jennifer Maia does her best work, either on the ground when she snatches up an armbar, I don't really see that taking place here with Jessica Ai, but, if you're on your back, you're losing the fight unless you're winning via submission. So if she gets on her back, there's a good chance she gets ground out by Jessica Ai. If they're on the feet, Jessica Ai probably can outmuscle this chick. And that's a little bit crazy to say, but I see a very clear path for Jessica Ai to win this fight, because if Maia has to close the range, if Maia has to get in tight and put her boxing to work in close, Jessica Ai can finally be the one with the reach advantage. Jessica Ai can finally be the one that keeps her opponent on the end of her punches. And then when they clinch up, I don't think Maia's going to be able to turn her around. I don't think Maia's going to be able to be the one forcing the takedowns and making things sticky. If anything, Ai is going to be the one who's going to control the clinch positions, who's going to control the cage positions. Believe it or not, this may be the first time in my entire betting career that I have very much wanted to bet on Jessica Ai. I have only ever faded this chick, and here I am saying at this number, believe it or not, I think she has value. I'm very, very tempted on that plus 160, plus 170 on Jessica Ai. Now I'm going to back up here and look at some of these comments, because I know I know what I'm in for here. Robert Cherry, buddy, I missed the shit out of you. Thank you for tuning into the show again. Glad to hear you're alive. Welcome back. All right. Tommy saying, I don't care what people say, Maia not shooting takedowns. She's shooting early and subbing Ai under 1.5. There you go. Tommy's got the favorite here on that one. Mark Unkefer saying the Paul Craig of women. That's actually a pretty good assessment. I don't mind that whatsoever. Dan Goldstein saying Jessica Ai isn't handsome enough for the OnlyFans money. She ain't Cyborg or Andrade. Now there's a couple. Okay, all right. Let's be nice, Dan. I highlighted the comment thinking we were going to get an actual comment here. John Fox saying Bare Knuckle FC is next for Ai, which honestly, I don't think she would do so bad in. I wouldn't have a problem with that. Let's see here. Getting through here. If Ai loses, she's cut right. Probably so. Gube catching up here on me that Maia does not grapple. Brass Knuckle saying that Jennifer has better stand-up than Ai. Honestly, believe it or not, it's close. Jessica Ai's stand-up is not as bad as people give her shit for. And if she's having that reach advantage, then the only thing that I see Maia being able to do is box in tight. So all the other positions, Jessica Ai is actually going to have the advantage. Clinch striking, advantage Ai. Range striking, advantage Ai. Boxing, advantage Maia. All right, getting caught up here. Fight goes the distance is the only safe bet. Yeah, Kung Dao Chicken, yeah, I mean, you're right on the button here. Most of these women fights, going the distance is generally speaking the way to go, except when that armbar from guard snatches you from midair. Thank you, Jared. I appreciate it, my friend. Aiden saying, Ai sucks. Come on now. Peter with me here. Preach. Let's get this one here. All right, moving down. Let's move this along. I saw a comment here. Devontae saying I'm not trolling. I swear. Oh, Mark, buddy. Okay, all right, let's be clear. I'm going to start tracking my simp bets, okay? I do not like Jessica Ai. This is the furthest thing from a simp bet. Even if she's showing her ass off and has a very expensive OnlyFans, I'm definitely not simping on this one. Let me get caught up here. Oh, she had Locker Room saying I get a free subscription if I pick her. That's actually pretty good. I'll reach out to her, let her know that on the podcast I've got 280 live viewers and I'm preaching that she's going to win the fight. Maybe she'll throw me a bone here. My wife's going to kill me. All right. I think we are good to go. Anthony, what's up? That's right. Skull Vikings, baby. Let's get it. Okay, I think we're caught up. We are absolutely caught up. So that is going to do it for the early prelims. And I think that is a perfect opportunity for us to take just a minute here and hear from one of the wonderful, amazing sponsors that we have here on this show, Pub Sports Radio, Die Hard MMA Podcast. Got to do the manscaping. Welcome back, everybody. This is the Die Hard MMA podcast. We're on Pub Sports Radio. We're breaking down UFC 264, and we have made it to the preliminary card. And Peter knows what's up. It is Duplessis time. And I remember last time everyone was calling me Clintus Duplessis after this one. It was pretty damn good. And Kung Dao Chicken, I'm just going to leave that there. I'm not even going to say anything. All right, here we go. Next up, we have got Trevin Giles taking on Dricus. Duplessis is actually the way that you pronounce that. I know it looks like Duplessis, and that's a much more fun way to say it, I feel like, but Duplessis is the right way to go at this one. Duplessis is currently the favorite, opened up pick'em, -110, -110, and it's been bouncing back and forth a little bit. We've got -120 on Dricus Duplessis and +100 even money on Trevin Giles. And now we're talking simp bets, right? Talk about people that we like in the MMA world and community. People that we have a weakness for betting on. What's the opposite of a simp bet? Because if there's anybody who I love and want to bet against, it is Trevin Giles. This is a guy that I am absolutely not sold on whatsoever, and every opportunity I get, I go against him. The only problem is that has been biting me straight in the ass. Trevin Giles is on a bit of a run at the moment, and it's upsetting. He's on a 3-fight win streak. Now, to be fair, he absolutely robbed James Krause blind. Like, there's that whole thing about the one judge that used to train with Trevin Giles' coach or some shit, that it was a blatant robbery, scored the wrong way for Trevin Giles with a very, very questionable scorecard from one of those judges. Now, Bevon Lewis, I actually think that might have been did I bet on Trevin Giles that night? I think I did. That may be the one time that I've actually bet on Trevin Giles because I saw that spot coming. Roman Dolidze, however, I told everyone to avoid that spot, and somehow my degenerate self couldn't keep my money in my pocket, and I ended up throwing some money on Roman Dolidze right before the fight, paid for it, knew better from the get-go, shouldn't have done it. But every other time, I'm always looking to go against this kid. Now, he's athletic. That's really the problem. He's very fast, very quick hands, sharp boxing. His jab is maybe his best weapon. He's got a very, very solid jab and good defensive striking. I have to give credit where credit is due. He is hard to hit. He moves his head a lot, but he keeps his hands low, and he's got really poor IQ, in my opinion. He makes some really, really questionable decisions, and his only 2 losses have been by submission by Zach Cummings and Gerald Meerschaert, both in the 3rd round. He slows down. He really slows down over the course of the fight, and he likes to put his wrestling to work, which he's a decent wrestler, but he gives up his back. He makes bad transitional mistakes, and fighting against people who have slick jiu-jitsu is really a problem for him. Now, I thought Roman Dolidze would be a guy who could take advantage of that. Unfortunately for me, Roman Dolidze was too busy looking for his coach to give him a heel hook and shit like that he just didn't pull it off. More traditional, higher percentage submissions, however, like the rear naked choke, I think are going to be the things that really work on someone like Trevin Giles. And in the 3rd round, when he slows down and he's tired, that really seems to be the thing that he just gives up freely. He's more than willing to let you take his neck. Dricus Duplessis on the flip side of this thing, he's 15-2. He's a pretty hot prospect coming in here into the UFC. And he's coming off a good win, but I can't say a big win because Marcus Perez ended up getting cut from the UFC right after that fight. He's got a 100% finish rate, and he's not even lost by decision. Like, this guy's never seen the judges' scorecards. His 2 losses, one by knockout, one by submission. He is an action fighter. I really like Dricus. And win, lose, or draw, he's going to be a guy I cheer for a long time in the UFC because he's just fun to watch. He's got a nasty low calf kick. He keeps a high, tight guard when he's in there, and he is explosive with that lead check left hook. That may be his best weapon. He's got a wicked guillotine. When people shoot in on him, he's got a tight, nasty squeeze on him, and he's got a really strong body lock takedown. He hunts the back. He's willing and able to backpack people with the body triangle and jump on their back and stay on top of them. He has big, nasty ground and pound if he manages to get on top of you, and he's got good killer instinct. This is a guy that will flurry and get you out of there if he senses at all that you're hurt in any way here. One thing that I like about him, though, is I mentioned those leg kicks. He chews up his opponent's legs. Like, over the course of the fight, he just works that front leg. And that's something that time and time again you love to see. And especially with somebody like Trevin Giles, who's athletic the way he is, that moves the way that he does, that's the kind of thing that's going to cause problems. If he can attack that lead leg and stop this kid from bouncing around, stop that speed, stop that movement, then it's going to be something that causes a problem for the kid the deeper the fight goes. I want to talk one more time about Dricus' UFC debut for a second, though, because I've got thoughts on it. You know, everybody after that fight talked about how that fight was really fluky. The way that he caught Marcus Perez behind the ear, it was the perfect button shot, and a lot of people thought, you know, he caught him coming in and it was fluke. It was, you know, it's something that he wouldn't be able to recreate. That's not going to work all the time, blah, 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 this and that and the other. I couldn't disagree more. When the fight happened, it was all really fast. It happened really, really quick. And I actually kind of thought the same thing. I thought there was a bit of a fluky nature to it. But when you go back and you rewatch the tape and you watch some of his older fights, he is so sharp with that shot. He hits people behind the ear constantly, and it leads to a lot of his finishes. So I actually think there's an opportunity for him to put that to work. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage here. And honestly, watching back on the Trevin Giles fight, in his very first round with James Krause, I thought it was over. The way he gave his back up, if he does that same shit against Dricus, this thing ain't going more than a round, because you do not want this man with that squeeze on your back. Now, I am extremely happy to report that at this point, I get to welcome in our esteemed guest. We have got the man himself, Dan, from Half the Battle, joining the show today. A little bit late, but we got it done, Dan. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Sorry I'm late, but I just don't give a fuck. Hey, Conor McGregor fight week, man. I'm excited. And I came in right in time for the Clintus Duplessis breakdown. So let's get down to business, my man. Thank you for having me, and thank you to your fans for having me.
Absolutely, man. Couldn't have timed it any better. When you and I were chatting about this one, getting it together, you're like, I think I can make it by the Giles Duplessis fight. Here we are. Absolutely nailed it. So, man, if you have any hot takes on the fights we've already talked about, if you want to just fire off on those, you can. If you don't want to, that's fine. I would love to hear your thoughts on this fight, because this seems to be one of the most hotly contested fights on the card this week, and it's priced appropriately. So I really want to hear what you got to say on this one.
I mean, this should be one of the hottest contested fights on the entire slate this week, because this kid Duplessis, it's one of those things where it's hard to cap because it doesn't look the prettiest. You know, he looks kind of slow out there. He looks kind of unathletic. He's very hittable, but he's got the touch of death in his hands. He's got an opportunistic finishing ability. He's got a nasty guillotine choke, which he's landed many times, which, by the way, has worked on Trevin Giles more than once. So if there's an opportunistic finish here, then you got to go with Duplessis. My issue is I feel like the minutes are going to be won by Giles here. You know, he's got a lightning fast jab. He's got that UFC experience. He's starting to feel more comfortable in there. So it's one of these cases where I think Giles is going to be winning the fight until he gets his arm raised or until he gets caught with an opportunistic finish along the way. So, I mean, I really could pick either side here. It's just that it's dog money, so I'm going to lean with Giles. If it was dog money Duplessis, I understand. Hey, let's catch him. Let's somewhere along the way. This guy's made many mistakes. He's open to that guillotine, which we love. I mean, that's a signature move of Duplessis. Plus, like I said, he's got one-punch knockout power, and he's extremely tough, man. He's durable. I'm going to slightly lean with the speed and the experience of Giles here to win a close decision.
Okay. It seems like there's a lot of people jumping on that same thought process, and I get it, man. I totally agree that it's like if there's a finish, it's probably Duplessis. If there's a decision, then we've never seen Duplessis go to the judges' scorecards, right? So it's hard to say that he's going to show up here and win his first decision in this fight against a guy that's got a slick jab and can move around and stay outside on him.
I mean, look, he could, though, because it's like one of those things where, let's say Giles is kind of jabbing him up, but then Duplessis gets a knockdown to end the round. I mean, that round's going to go to Duplessis, so it could be a greasy split decision type fight as well. So I think the pick'em is correct.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, man. And we're really going to piss off my guy, Rockstar Z. Shout out to Z if he's listening to this. I love that guy. He's going hard on Trevin Giles here, saying he should be like a minus 200 favorite in this spot. Man, I couldn't disagree more on that point. And I actually kind of like Duplessis by submission. If they give me any half decent line on Duplessis by submission, or even just Duplessis in round 3, I may be taking a little taste of those two props here on this one, because I think that his squeeze is next level. And if Trevin Giles does the same thing we've seen him do time and time again and gives up his back, then he's in for a problem.
Yeah. I mean, no questions asked. It's one of those things where Giles has got to be on his game from the second the bell rings, because even if like he's getting up to this lead, he might start to get a bit confident. And you know how Giles is. He's the kind of guy that in the middle of a fight, he'll start going, woo! And you start to lose your concentration for even 1 second against a guy like Dricus Duplessis. And that's all. And that might be the one moment he needs to finish the fight. So he's got to be on top of his shit. No questions asked. I just personally think that he should be favored. But when I say favored, I'm saying, he should be the slight favorite, the minus 120, the minus 125. But, I mean, the arguments for Duplessis are completely valid in my eyes.
I feel you, man. And I completely agree. We're talking penny pinching here. The line is maybe backwards. We'd like to see the even money on the other side, but that may not stop me from taking it before fight time come Friday.
Listen, if he knocks him out or chokes him out with that guillotine, I mean, then who gives a fuck if it's only minus 120 and not plus 100? So
exactly. Oh, Bobby, chill, buddy. Throwing the heat in the chat already.
Real quick. What's the score? Braves are winning right now. So and when people talk about how baseball is boring, hey, my team scored 20 runs the other day. What team can say that?
That was ridiculous.
Yeah.
They're playing football out there.
Exactly.
All right, man. So we are moving this bad boy right along. Next fight up, we have got maybe the most baffling fight I have ever seen. Ryan Hall taking on Ilia Topuria. And man, we have got such a line on this thing. Ilia Topuria is a minus 260 favorite, plus 205 the comeback on Ryan the Wizard Hall. And man, I left myself a note here on this one. They call him the Wizard because you can't hit this guy. Like, Ryan Hall has created the most frustrating style I have ever seen in my life. And I tweeted out earlier today, I want to legitimately know, how do you train for Ryan Hall? Like, nobody moves like this guy does. If he can throw a spinning elbow or a spinning kick and catch you on the end of something, he has every opportunity to knock you out. He's got legitimate explosive power. And then on the ground, he's a high-level grappler. He goes for heel hooks. He can sweep you. He can submit you. Like, he's all over it. But in that middle range where literally anybody else should be able to touch this guy, he flops. He just falls to his ass. Like, you can't touch him because he's not there. Like, he's either too far away for you to hit or he's on his back on the ground. And no one so far has been a good enough grappler to take advantage of that. Now, maybe we have that spot here on Saturday, that Ilia Topuria is physically strong enough and a good enough wrestler to stay on top of Ryan Hall and smother him and keep him in that kind of a spot. But so far, nobody else has been able to do that. His rolling for leg locks to escape, to get out, to get back to his feet, no one's been able to stuff that to this point. So I got to wonder if 10-0 Ilia Topuria is the guy that's going to end up cracking the code. Ilia Topuria's got really sharp boxing. He's a tank, very powerful, short, stocky, smooth on the feet, fast hands, offensive pressure, but he's exactly the kind of guy that Ryan Hall finds success with. He just walks down his opponents. He just walks forward, walks into the offense. And if Ryan Hall is able to stick to the game plan that he always has, I kind of think there's value on the dog here. I mean, getting 2-1 on a guy like Ryan Hall that's so tough to figure out against a kid that's still relatively unproven, untested in the UFC. I don't see him being able to finish Ryan Hall. I don't see the submission coming. Obviously, if he hits him with a big bomb, he's got the power to knock out anybody. He could knock him out. But I also don't know that he's going to be able to control him enough on the ground to get offense off. So in my opinion, ground and pound is kind of out the window unless he hits him with a big bomb and stuns him or something like that to get a flurry in. I kind of feel like this is a dogger's pass spot. Dan, talk to me, man. How do you feel about this fight?
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Hall, it's like, how do you prepare for him? Like you said, right? He's such a unique individual because normally, look, everyone's got their own style, their own unique flair. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, who are you training for? Okay, I'm training for a wrestler, or I'm training for a boxer or a kickboxer or a jiu-jitsu guy, or maybe more specifically a leg lock guy. But like when you think of leg lock guys, you think of first round or bust. Well, Ryan Hall's won many decisions, so he's not first round or bust. When you think of a leg lock guy, you think of a guy that if he can't get that first round leg lock, he kind of quits. Like Rusmara Balhars, you think of a short, stocky guy that's going to throw big bombs, sell out on that single leg. But with Ryan Hall, he's like out here throwing spin kicks. If you get too close to him, he flops to his back. So I understand that. You know, speaking as a fan, it might not be the most exciting thing to watch. And, you know, if you're some drunk guy at a bar, you know, some drunk guy at the bar is like, what the hell's this guy rolling around on the ground like a goddamn, you know what I mean? So it's like one of those things where you can't really explain his style like to a lot of people. And it might not, you know, when you talk about fight of the year or knockout of the year, submission, maybe submission of the year, but when you talk about fight of the year or this or that, he's not going to be on anyone's list. But when you talk about figuring out how to beat him in a fight, that's where it gets kind of tough, man, because he's not going to really take like those unnecessary risks. He's not going to be there to be hit. So it's one of those things where let's see how good Topuria is, because I'm confident saying Topuria is going to be a top 15 guy one day. No questions asked. Like, I think that obviously his hands are very sharp. His grappling is on point. You saw that in the Zhalal fight. And more importantly, if you go back to his last fight prior to his UFC debut, he gets dropped with a head kick. He comes back and he finishes that guy in the first round. So he's got the toughness of someone that needs that, you know, you need a certain level of toughness to compete in the top 15 of the UFC featherweight division. He's got the heart of a champion. But just because he's a future top 10 guy, that doesn't mean that he might not take a first L here. Like, he can still take a first L and go on and be a top 10 guy. So listen, I'm leaning Topuria. I think he might have the goods to get it done, but you might see me betting on Ryan Hall because it's like you get a plus 200 on a guy like Ryan Hall, and it's like I know Topuria has never faced anybody like Ryan Hall before. I mean, no one's faced anyone like Ryan Hall. Is such a he's a once in a he's a diamond in the rough. He's a very unique character, you know. So it's one of those things. Hey, listen, BJ Penn might be completely washed up, but no one else was out here tapping out BJ Penn, let alone in one round. And even the guys that beat up BJ Penn, they usually beat him up for a prolonged period. Ryan Hall got him out of there in a couple of minutes, which no one else has been able to do. Oh, Ryan Hall would submit Jordan Levitt in the first round, bro. Like this is different levels. Like I don't even think Jordan Levitt's a black belt. I think he might be like a purple belt, you know. So it's completely different levels here. Topuria is a stud. I understand why he's favored, and it's just about, you know, what's the approach here, right? Like, what's the approach here? And people say, oh, but Ryan Hall didn't finish Lobov. He didn't finish this. He didn't finish that. But it's like, you don't have to finish to win. You can get a 30-27 and win, right? So exactly. Who gives a shit if you didn't finish? Who cares how, like, you got to separate how ugly the fights look and how, like, you know, the aesthetics of a Ryan Hall fight. I get he's flopping around on his back, and you know he's not
doesn't look good.
He doesn't get into any striking exchanges. Like I completely understand that, but like if he's landing more than you're not hitting him, and he's the one having the submission attempts, then he ends up winning the decision. So let's see if Topuria can make him pay. Let's see if Topuria can bust this guy up, you know, for the times that he gets to strike with Ryan Hall. Let's see if he makes the most of it. And then on the mat, let's see how his scrambling ability is. So I'm going to go with Topuria, man, but I might end up betting Ryan Hall just because of this number. And just so people know, I'm not biased on either side. I mean, I bet Topuria in both his UFC fights against Zhalal at like plus 160 when Zhalal was like, people were acting like he was some hot prospect. And then I bet him at -200 against Damon Jackson. That was easy work. And then
that was easy.
Ryan Hall, I bet him at dog money versus Gray Maynard and at dog money versus Darren Elkin. So I like both these guys. So the pick is Topuria, but if I were to bet it at the current price, I would take a little gamble on the +200 on Hall and see what happens. Maybe he gets embarrassed. Maybe he leg locks this kid and this kid comes back and goes to the top 15. So let's see.
Man, I couldn't agree with you more. We got 312 live viewers watching the show right now. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us tonight. And I got to say, man, you absolutely nailed that breakdown. And we're talking gambling, folks. Like, if you just want a quick pick, sure, we'll say Ilia Topuria wins this one. But at +200 on a guy like Hall, so many things can go wrong and happen for him to get the win here on Saturday. The bet is absolutely got to be dog or pass, in my opinion, in this spot. But I think I found a sneaky little spot that I like, Dan. I'd be looking at the over 2.5 here.
You said over or under?
Over okay. 2.5.
So no first round leg lock.
Well, that's the thing. That's the danger, right? The reason we're getting this line is because the leg locks of Hall and then the submission and ground and pound offense of Topuria. I don't think Topuria is going to be able to catch Hall. I think he's going to have a hard time on the feet locating this guy. I think Topuria is also going to be defensively sound enough on the feet. He's going to be able to get out of the way of those wheel kicks and shit that Hall throws. So when they engage in the grappling, like I said before, I think that either Ilia Topuria is going to be 1,000% focused on holding Hall down, because if you're not focused on it, he gets up, or I think that Hall is going to scramble, reverse, and get back to the feet. I don't think either of these guys is going to have much success in the submission area of this fight. I think they're both savvy enough, defensively solid enough, that it's going to cancel out. And because of that, I think we're going to get a very, very tentative fight, and I think it squeezes its way to the judges' scorecards. So it's either a wet blanket by Topuria, or it's kind of a cautious back and forth the other way. And either way, I think it hits the cards. I think getting a pick 'em at over 2.5 is kind of the way to go here.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, man. It's just tough because, like, I could see a Topuria knockout if Ryan Hall tests his stand-up long enough, and I could also see that, bro, that leg lock game is fucking serious, man. I mean, and,
it's true.
And it's one thing, it's easy to sit here and say, but if it's so serious, how come he didn't submit all those guys? Well, those guys weren't confident enough to engage on the ground with Ryan Hall, whereas a kid like Topuria
completely avoided it.
Topuria is undefeated. He's got that undefeated confidence. He thinks he's God's gift to fighting. He might feel like for example, Jamal Hill, who I'm still very high on, and he's going to win his next fight, but he was undefeated. He thought he's God's gift to fighting. So when they go to the ground, instead of standing back up, he passes to half guard. And when he passed to half guard, he was like, "Oh shit, maybe I can compete. Maybe I can compete on the ground with Paul Craig." So you look at Topuria. If he gets him down and he starts passing, you might be like, "Shit, like maybe I can." Maybe I can compete down here with Ryan Hall, and one mistake is all it could take. So what I'm trying to say is that Topuria might give him the opportunities and the openings to get that submission, whereas these other guys were kind of just running away and wanted nothing to do with him. So yeah, I could see it going under. That's why I'm kind of sketched about it.
Isn't it always funny when these guys hit that God's gift to fighting status? That's when they drop the ball, like every damn time. The guys that keep their heads down, keep grinding, keep working at it, act like the challenger every time, they're the ones that kick serious ass. As soon as you get to the point that you're believing your own hype, that's when somebody humbles you in this game.
Yeah. I mean, that's really how it goes. But it doesn't seem like he's talking reckless or, he's getting emotional or anything like that. Like this kid Topuria seems like he's got the right people behind him. He's got a good head on his shoulder, seems very, very intelligent. So I don't expect him to, be skipping practices or be doing any bullshit just because he's undefeated. It's just with the Hill example, I'm not sitting here saying that Topuria and Hill have the same level of ground game. That's not the example I'm making. The example I'm making is that if you have early success on the ground with your opponent, that might make you overconfident to stay in their strongest department. So that's what I'd be worried about with Topuria. He starts to pass to half guard, he passes to mount, and then you might feel like, hey, I can smash this guy. You make one mistake, and you know what happens with those heel hooks. You're out. You tear your ACL with that shit. So I would just be cautious if I was Topuria as far as the scrambling side of things goes.
I feel you. All right, man. I like it. I like that we line up on the side there, at least on the breakdown. Next fight up, we have got an absolute banger, and for some reason there it goes. All right. I was like, my screen isn't working here. We have got two absolute shout out to my guy Paul Shaughnessy from the Dogger Pass podcast. Two shit-eating wild men up next in this fight. Niko, the hybrid Price, taking on Michel Pereira. And man, we talked a little bit earlier about simp bets on the show and fighters that we, look to get behind and want to take every piece of that we can. That has always been Niko Price for me. I love the guy. I love his addictive, positive attitude and energy. I love the way he comes to fight, and it doesn't matter what position he's in, who he's fighting. He just comes in to kill every single time. And he's one of those few fighters that you can say kind of has the death touch. Like the way he KOs people from literally any position in the cage is stupid and not supposed to be possible. I love the way the guy comes for war. Now, Michel Pereira on the other side of this thing, he is a massive man at 170 pounds. Like when he gets in there in the cage, you just see him. I don't know if towering is the right words. Niko's a big boy too, so it might be someone who can physically match him. But like in his last fight against Chaos, there was a very, very apparent discrepancy between the physicality of those two men. And it's such a benefit to him at 170. He's crazy explosive, crazy athletic. He also has insane power, very light on his feet, cuts good angles, uncorks the flying knee every once in a while. But he's really been evolving his last couple fights. I mean, man, when he first stepped into the UFC, I was the first guy to be like, there's no way this guy's lasting. His jumping shit and his back flips and his spinner, like all the crazy stuff that he did, I'm like, he's just going to pay for this. And he did. He lost that first fight in a spot where he was never supposed to drop it. And he's completely turned it around since then, especially in the Chaos fight. He toned it down. He did exactly what he needed to do to avoid the bomb and win that fight. And his chin checked out, man. We have seen the power of Chaos on full display. And he took 4 or 5 good, clean shots from that guy and just kept walking. So I have no doubts anymore about Michel Pereira. I think he's getting to the point where he's a legitimate prospect in the division if he continues taking it seriously the way that he is now. Most of his losses came outside the UFC when he was putting on a show. He was having too much fun. He's got 11 losses, man. 1 knockout, 1 submission, 9 by decision. Like I said, just because he put too much stock into having fun. Now, Niko Price on the flip side of this thing, he's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage, which is definitely something. And he's only gone to 2 decisions his entire career. His record says 1, but the cowboy no contest bullshit is one we definitely still have to count. Speaking of slight tangent, I'll never know how Cowboy went 15 minutes with Niko Price at this stage of his career. I thought he was dead in that fight. So all props to Cowboy for surviving that one. But man, this is another very competitive fight here. We've got Pereira about a -155 favorite, +130 on Niko Price. And my first thought was, my boy Niko at dog money, who can end the fight at any point? Hell yeah, count me in. And then I went back and I did my study. I watched the tape. I watched what Pereira looks like right now. And man, I just have a bad feeling that Niko is going to go out on his shield like he always does. He's going to have the volume advantage. He's going to be the one pushing the pace in the action. The problem with that is that he will walk into a shot. And Michel Pereira is not a guy you want to eat big power shots from. It feels almost like the last one we talked about with Dricus, where it's like, if this thing makes it to the scorecards, I think Niko Price is probably the one winning it because he'll have more output. Both guys obviously can finish. But I feel like the brick wall that Pereira's put up as far as his durability goes is going to be the thing that kind of wins him the day here. How do you see this fight going?
God, it's such a tough fight to call. A lot of Niko Price's fights are tough to call because he literally does stuff that you've never seen before in all your years watching this sport, and you can't call it a fluke anymore. It's like the Randy Brown fight knocks him out from bottom, and it's easy, it's easy to be like, oh, that was a fluke. Then he does it to James Vick with an upkick, and it's like, fool me once, shame on me, and all that shit. Like,
yep.
The famous George Bush quote, and then the Tim Means knockout is absolutely ridiculous. The Alex Morano knockout, and he's knocked out some guys, some real UFC guys, some proven legit guys. And, you just have to always fear his power. But one thing I got to say is his volume the last 2 fights has been picking up on a completely different level. It used to be one of those things where Niko was kind of that junkyard dog and he'd come back and, get that comeback knockout. But now it's the volume in these last 2 fights versus Vicente and Cowboy, has been very promising, and it shows that maybe now he could be a guy that could win decisions, because it used to be, kind of a finish or bust type ordeal with him, but now he's like putting up numbers, so he's making big improvements. And then with Michel Pereira, I agree with you about, he dialed it back a little bit, he toned it down, like, all the theatrics and stuff like that. So I'm glad to see that. And also, in addition to that, a lot of the losses he had were at 185 pounds. Right now he's at 170, so he's doing better at this new weight class. I feel like the Tristan Connolly fight wasn't even about what Tristan Connolly did right. That fight was about what Michel did wrong. Michel had that spectacular performance against Danny Hot Chocolate. He's doing, backflips. He's doing the whole bit. He got his 50K bonus, and the dude completely lost his mind. You know how this shit goes, Clint. These young fighters, they get 150K bonus and they go off the deep end. Then his next fight, against Tristan Connolly, he misses weight. He's doing 10 backflips in the walkout. Like the guy, because what would happen if Michel was even 1% more focused for that Tristan Connolly fight? He'd run through the kid. So
absolutely,
yeah. So now that we're getting a focused version of him, I'm happy to see it. And even though the volume says that Niko lands at a higher clip, I'm actually more under the impression that Michel can land the more impactful shots, barring him not getting knocked out. So if it goes to decision, I actually kind of lean towards Michel winning the decision. I think either guy could get knocked out, no doubt about it. I mean, it's just tough to count a guy like Niko Price out, because even when I bet on like Jeff Neal against him back when, before Jeff Neal had the unfortunate health problems, like back when Jeff Neal was a hot prospect, like Niko gave me a sweat, man. Niko dropped Jeff Neal. Like Niko is a dog. So you can't count him out. I'm going to pick against him. I'm going to pick Michel, but I'm not going to be surprised if Niko, does something spectacular, which he's known for.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you there, and it makes it tough, especially like this is where you got to separate the personal side from the betting. I'm such a fan of Niko. Like anytime I bet against him, it feels like I'm in a lose-lose situation, because I win money, yay, but my boy lost. Like I hate when that happens. So, oh yeah. So for me, the pick is going to be Michel Pereira. I'm going to say Michel gets this thing done. I think he's got an absolute live shot at finishing this thing by knockout as well. But here we go. We'll see what ends up happening. And my boy feeling the pain here, Leon, you and me both, brother. The first time in the series that we have not taken Habs in the first period, they decided to score first. So, for my 18-1, them coming back and winning the series, I hope they win the game. But I need them to slow down.
Real quick, I got to ask you something. What do you have against the Tampa Bay Lightning? Because I've noticed not just like, like the last month or anything, but I've noticed like the last like maybe 5 years, you're always betting against them. Like, did they like take one of your favorite players, or like, what's the history here, man?
Man, it is. It's basically the same thing that plagues me in literally any sport that I bet on, is that I see holes in the favorite, and I think someone can expose them. So I take the value of the underdog on the opposite end of it, and every once in a while I run into a brick wall where I'm just dead wrong, and that has been me with the Tampa Bay Lightning so far, is that I feel like in this whole series, I've thought that the Habs could beat them. I thought the New York Islanders could beat them. And they have just proven me wrong time and time again. And I've put rules in place for MMA. There's my short list of fighters that you simply do not fade. And, the Tampa Bay Lightning is turning into a team that's headed for that list in a non-MMA sport, because I just don't learn my lesson easily.
I feel you, man. Hey, it happens, man. And the funny thing is, the day you pass is like when like the Lightning are going to get their fucking asses kicked.
And that's going to be today. I've got the under 1.5. I've got the under 1.5, and they're reviewing right now if a second goal just went in. So I'm waiting to see if they decide to credit them with that or not. So I may or may not be alive with 4 more minutes to sweat in the first period. But I have literally bet the Habs in the first period the last 3 games in a row. This is the first game they've scored first, and it was the one I decided to bet the under instead of betting them in the first period. So I'm a little frustrated.
I can understand.
Gotta love the sports betting degeneracy, man. Anybody that's been betting for a while has been there. So next fight on the docket here, the legend himself, Carlos Condit, returns, taking on Max Payne Griffin. And we've talked about it a couple times already, man. There are several hot buzz tickets fights on this card this week, and this really is one of them. There's been a big divide, I feel like, on this fight. We have got a big favorite in Max Griffin. He's about a 2-1 favorite at this point. You can get plus 160-ish on Carlos Condit coming back the other way. And Carlos Condit's one of these guys that he's got some problems, man. He's got some holes in his game. He retired, he came back, but at the end of the day, at a certain point, he won the belts. At a certain point, he was the champion in the UFC. Like, he's reached a level of the sport that Max Griffin hasn't shown the ability to get to just yet. He's training at the BMF ranch out there with Cowboy. He's got great footwork, always attacks in combos, so his striking is always very pretty when it comes to the judges' scorecards. Sharp elbows, great kicking game. The problem is he's got horrific takedown defense, man. He doesn't put up a fight at all when it comes to the wrestling, and anybody that wants to take him down can. He accepts bottom position. He's willing to play off his back, but he's got some nasty submissions from there, and he absolutely can catch people with submissions off of his back. He is willing to play the matador on the feet, which is something that I think could benefit him really well here in this fight with Max Griffin, a guy that seems to have potentially fallen in love with his striking recently. He's always been kind of the middle-of-the-road guy. Max Griffin is a guy that I've actually kind of looked to fade more so than look to support, and recently I bet against him a couple of times, and he's really shown that he's kind of having a late career surge here. He's got tight boxing. He's very aggressive. He's sitting down on his punches recently, showed off his power in his last fight against Song Kanan, and I did bet against him in that spot. I'm pretty upset about it because I felt like Song was winning that fight until he landed the big shot that changed the trajectory of it, and he put him away there in that first round. The thing is he struggles at range, and that's where Carlos Condit is going to have a big advantage and do work. I mean, Max Griffin does have good footwork. He does rip people to the floor with big body lock power takedowns, which could be the death knell for Carlos Condit. And he's got wet blanket top control. The only problem for me is in fights like the Alex Cowboy Oliveira fight, where after 2 full rounds of combat, he starts to slow down in the third. Alex is the one on top of him. Alex is the one who ends up, causing problems and dealing damage and looking for the back. And if this fight doesn't get over soon, which both these guys are pretty damn durable. Carlos Condit has only been knocked out once, and it was that really weird TKO leg break situation with Tyrone Woodley. I don't know that Max Griffin is going to be slick enough on the feet to knock Carlos Condit out early. And Condit's the kind of guy that can wear down a Max Griffin who is not at the level of opponent that he's used to facing in his UFC career. After getting 2 wins under his belt, getting back in the driver's seat, I came into this one thinking I was going to bet on Max Griffin and thought the minus 200 was justified just because of that grappling. The more I look at this fight, I feel like there's some value here on the dog. How do you feel about this one, Dan?
Another tough fight to call because, I mean, like a couple of years ago, if you would have told me that Carlos Condit is plus 165 versus Max Griffin, it would have been like a laughing joke between, me and my friends. It's like, what? Carlos Condit's a dog to this guy, But it's just like, where's Condit at in his career right now, right? He is coming off 2 wins, so you got to give him credit for that. But, man, there's like moments in these fights where, like you were talking about, gives up the takedown so easily. And this is nothing new, Clint. I mean, even in his prime, he wasn't stuffing takedowns. It's just he came from an era where you could play off your back and throw big elbows, cut these guys up from bottom. And then when they get back up, that's when he goes to work. But since he's kind of, maybe lost a step, look, he's still got great technique. He's still a legend. He's still got all his experience. And he's not just a former UFC interim champ. He's the former WEC welterweight champ. And so, Carlos Condit's a legend of the sport. I mean, wins over Rory McDonald, Nick Diaz, albeit controversial. I mean, still won that fight. Lots of other wins along the way. The Jake Ellenberger fight was fantastic. Like, Carlos Condit's an absolute legend of the fucking sport. The Dan Hardy knockout. And, what's actually interesting, just useless fact, the 2 guys he just beat, Court McGee and Matt Brown, that they're the only UFC fighters. Well, not anymore because Terrence McKinney, I think maybe Terrence McKinney joins that club. But aren't Matt Brown and Court McGee the only guys to like die from overdoses and then come back to life? Like,
Actually, I think yes.
The immortal Matt Brown. He literally is immortal. The guy died and came back to life.
I'm so happy he got the KO win last time out.
And fucking Condit fought both those guys back to back. So that's kind of just an interesting little tidbit, but it doesn't really mean anything. How much top control is Max Griffin going to get here, right? Like, is he going to be able to hold him down? Is he just going to take him down briefly and then Condit gets back up? And then on the feet, how are these exchanges going to go? Because one thing about Condit is he's got a fantastic chin, but the reason that we know he has a fantastic chin is because he gets hit a lot, right? So are these points going to start to add up for Max Griffin? It goes to decision and he wins. So that's what I'm worried about, because again, like I told you, you give me prime Condit against prime Griffin, and it's max bet season on Condit all day, and this line would be flipped and the whole bit. It's just about where Condit is now. And Griffin's been making improvements. I understand those last two fights were against, lower level competition. I understand. But still, to see him get on a win streak for the first time in his UFC career, a guy who was always alternating wins and losses. And, he starts to, because at one point he was fighting for his job, man. There was a time when he lost 3 of 4 and it seemed like he was one fight away from getting cut. And now he's starting to, he's starting to feel at home inside the UFC. So I'm happy for him. Since I'm talking like it's a tough fight to call, I'm going to go with the dog here. I'm going to pick the Natural Born Killer. I picked the Natural Born Killer against Court McGee, you know what I mean? And everyone was on Court McGee because apparently he was supposed to wrestle in that fight. But it's tough. I don't know how this fight's going to play out. There's so many different ways it could. I'm going to lean with the Natural Born Killer.
Okay. Once again, we kind of line up. Close competitive fight. Lots of different ways things can go back and forth here. Yeah, I think there's value on the dog for sure. If you're laying the wood on his opponent here, thinking that he's going to just wet blanket him, use that takedown ability, Griffin's going to go back to his grappling, not fall in love with his striking, I can see it, but I don't think there's enough value on that number personally. I'd be more looking to bet Carlos Condit. I think actually it was you that said a couple fights ago, but Anthony Pettis is a guy that it takes a certain level of opponent to be able to beat. I think you said that about Alex Morono when they fought. And sure enough, Anthony Pettis came through. That's kind of how I feel about this fight, that it takes a certain level of opponent to beat Carlos Condit. And I'm not convinced that Max Griffin is that guy. I know he's getting better later in his career, but I do think he's got a ceiling, and it's just a matter of time. Let me say this.
You're 100% correct about the ceiling. I mean, no debate there. We ain't talking about rankings or nothing like that. It's more so like a thing where even in some of these fights that he's losing, he's having a lot of moments of success. Like, for example, I bet Elijah Zaleski against Max Griffin. It was in Brazil, and I'm thinking it's going to be this walk in the park. You look at the stats. There were 2 knockdowns landed in that fight, both by Max Griffin. So it's one of those things where I understand Condit's not known for getting knocked out, but he is getting up there in age. Could this be the first time, right? Because you know how this shit happens. Things don't get better with fighters at this stage. They tend to get worse. And that's what I'm worried about. If Max maybe has a little bit more in the tank at this point in their careers. That's why I understand why he's favored. But to what extent should he truly be favored, Clint? Should he really be minus 200, right? So, yeah, let's see.
I feel you.
We got to root for the Natural Born Killer too, right?
Got to. All right, man. So first off, quick break. Cashed the first period under 1.5. The Habs killed off a power play and did not let the Lightning score. If you rolled with me on the DGen action, we got that ticket through there. And then we're going to take a quick break to hear from one of our sponsors before we start the main card breakdown of UFC 264. Welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast, sponsored by Pub Sports Radio in the Southtown 101. My name is Clint. I'm your host. As always, I am joined by my man, Dan, from Half the Battle at Best Fight Picks on Twitter. We're talking UFC 264. This is the main card portion of the show. And the first fight up, probably with good reason, is Sean O'Malley taking on UFC newcomer Kris Moutinho. Now, I don't know how many of you follow me on TikTok, but if you don't, you should. I made a TikTok, and apparently the key to success on TikTok, Dan, is triggering groups of fan bases because I made a joke about how Sean O'Malley basically ducked a couple of the solid UFC opponents like Ricky Simone that he could have taken on short notice, and instead picks this UFC debutant who's 9-4 and leaves his chin up in the air. And holy shit, it's got over 13,000 views. And I've never seen so much hate in my life. I've been called a casual. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's a joke, people. Calm your tits. Like, I had a good time with that one. But this fight, man, there's not even that much to technically analyze or break down, in my opinion. There's a reason that this fight is kicking off the main pay-per-view portion of the night, because the UFC is expecting Sugar Sean O'Malley to get another highlight reel spot here. He's a 10-1 favorite. He's 9-1 right now, but he's headed towards 10-1. You can get the kid Kris on the other side of this thing, plus 600. And watching the tape, like I said, Kris leaves his chin up everything he does. He's been knocked out twice. He's been submitted twice. He walks people down and throws from the hip with reckless abandon. Sean O'Malley, 13-1, gonna have a 5-inch reach advantage here. It's all but done already, Dan. Like, as much as I would love to make an argument for the dog here or say something could potentially happen, I don't think this kid's UFC caliber. I think the UFC is bringing him in specifically to lose and be a slot on a highlight reel. It's Sean O'Malley or nothing. Sean O'Malley by knockout. I don't want to say round one because he has a tendency to play with his food a little bit. This one could go a bit deeper with him just looking to get a little bit of octagon time or something. But I think it's just a matter of time. Sean O'Malley wins this fight when and how he wants to, in my opinion.
Yeah, listen, Moutinho is actually fun, though. He's a lot of fun to watch. Like, at least like what I can say about Moutinho is he ain't about to come out here and put his head between O'Malley's legs and try to boo the crowd and try to stall the fight out until he gets knocked out. At least he's going to come out here. He's going to trade some shots and, you know, until one man falls. And you know which one man's going to fall. But the thing is, at least this guy comes to fight. You know, I feel like for Moutinho's case, it's one of those things where he needs, you know, a couple more fights, a little more seasoning, and then he can be in the UFC because he does have skills. I mean, look, he's got a nice striking arsenal. He's very patient out there. He's tough as fuck. I've seen him get dropped in fights and come back to win those fights. Now, getting dropped against O'Malley here, the fight's probably going to be over. But just saying, you know, going forward that, you know, I wouldn't count Moutinho out in other fights, you know, like I think that he could probably drop a weight class and, you know, you get him in there with a Malcolm Gordon, you get him in there with a Adashev, you get him in there with a JP Buys, and I think there could be some honest fights, you know what I mean? So, but here against Sean O'Malley, you know, this is that fight where Sean O'Malley is going to style on the kid, switch stances, you know, front kicks to the face, set up the pullback counter. I mean, the whole bit. So it's going to be the sugar show. You know, it's one of those things with O'Malley. It's like when you're trying to lay, you know, 10-1, you know, minus 1,000 here. You just got to consider that O'Malley's been, you know, injured in more than one fight, you know, not just the Vera fight, but also the Sukumtut fight. And had Sukumtut had, you know, 2 higher points on his IQ, he would have made O'Malley stand up. Instead, he just laid in his guard while the guy had no leg, and you know he lost that fight. You know, we always used to make the joke about Sukumtut that he's that guy that you're not going to cheat on his paper during the exam in school. You know what I mean? Like that. Well, we ain't looking at Andre's paper, but I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, but honestly, I think that Moutinho is going to come out swinging. He's going to go down swinging. He's going to get knocked out. He might. Don't be surprised if it's a submission too. I could see him getting clipped with a shot and then shooting on a desperate shot, getting guillotined. O'Malley does train jiu-jitsu too. And then as far as the TikTok thing, like, see, I know you, so I know that, you know, you're having fun, you're joking, and you know, trigger the fans. it's funny and all that, but like people actually legitimately believe that Sean O'Malley like calls the shots, as if Sean O'Malley was like Dana, I want you to sign an unknown guy that no one's ever heard of, and I'm gonna knock him out. Like that's not how the shit works. It was pretty much a case where talk is cheap, guys. It's easy for Ricky Simone to say, "Oh, I want the fight." Yeah, but when you say I want the fight, what that means is that you need a weigh in at 135 on Friday before the fight, and then go in there and fight. So it's easy for a guy like Cody Stamann to be like, "Oh, I want the fight, but it has to be at 45s." It's like, dude, you don't get to call the shots of the weight class, Cody Stamann. This is O'Malley's fight. So, talk is cheap. And then you got a guy like Kelleher saying, "Oh, why didn't he take a fight with me?" Guys, you know that Kelleher missed weight for the first Montel Jackson fight. They had to cancel it, and then they rescheduled it, and then Montel Jackson missed weight the second time. So you're talking about guys that, weren't in shape and ready to go. They're just getting clout on the internet because O'Malley's a big name. So I completely understand it.
It makes sense.
But if you truly believe that O'Malley called the matchmakers and was like, let's sign some unknown guy that no one's ever heard. Like, bro, that's not what fucking happened. Like, that's not even close to what happened. He wants to fight at 135. He's going to fight at 135. These guys that were running their mouths, like I said, it sounds fun to the fans. Oh, he's ducking the fight, this and that, but that's not how this shit works, man. There was never, you see Merab talking about how, oh, I want O'Malley. It's like, Merab, you're signed to fight Marlon Moraes in October. Like, what the fuck are you? You know damn well you're not about to fight O'Malley. So it's one of those things. Then the fans are like, "Oh, he's ducking Merab." It's like Merab signed to fight Marlon Moraes. Like, what are you talking about? He's ducking Merab. So talk is cheap. To actually truly want the fight, because again, yeah, you could want the fight, but to truly want the fight means you're going to make 135 pounds on Friday and show up. And I frankly don't believe that those guys were ready to do that. Whereas Coutinho or Moutinho, he's small for the weight class. He's got nothing to lose. He's ready to step up. Plus, his manager's got a good relationship with the UFC. They were ready to go. So, it's one of those things. Alex Hernandez was once the Moutinho, but Neil Dariush was supposed to fight. I don't recall who he was supposed to fight that night, but they called up, a guy on a week short notice. He stepped up and took the call, and Alex Hernandez, got the fluke win. And I say fluke win because you see how the careers panned out. But yeah, look at Tristan Connolly and Pereira. You think that was the original fight they were trying to make? You think they even wanted Tristan Connolly on the roster? I mean, it was, and no offense, Tristan, tough guy, I respect you, but the hard truth is that Michel was supposed to fight someone else, and they needed someone to step up on a week notice. Okay, let's call this guy, So
what is with these short notice fill-ins just doing the damn thing recently? Like that, it used to be a weakness, and now it's like these guys coming in, you got to watch out for them.
I mean, yeah, because they got nothing to lose, and then the favorites are in a position where, like, man, am I going to take unnecessary risks? Because if I lose, that would be a massive loss, And also, do they fight uncharacteristic in those fights? Because I got a buddy. I'm not going to name his name because I don't want to, But anyways, I got a buddy who went 10-0 on the regional scene, right? And 10-0 with 10 first round finishes, right? So when you get 10-0 with 10 first round finishes, you get noticed by the UFC, and they're like, okay, a couple more wins, and we're going to sign you or bring you on Contenders. So he literally just found any random bum, and just because they didn't say you had to fight a specific level opponent. They said just get a couple wins and you're in. So that's all they had to do. So, he goes in there, completely abandons all the rules of fighting, keep your hands up, your chin down. And just because the guy he was fighting had a shitty ass record, he just charges him with his chin straight up in the air and gets caught in 15 seconds. Now his record's 10-1. Now you got to start all over again. So it's one of those things. Like, as long as O'Malley's got his head on straight, he's going to knock this kid's head into the fifth row or choke him out. So, but Moutinho is exciting. And I know I'm ranting. I know that for some reason I got on a big rant here, man. I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to bore y'all at all. I hope y'all found this somewhat interesting. But this kid Moutinho, give him a chance just to put on some entertaining fights, man. He comes to scrap.
Yep, I feel you there. Maybe he's one of these guys that takes his UFC sanctioned jumping, and now that he's in the gang, gets a winnable fight next time out or something.
Let me say this, because I know it's like, oh, all you got to do is kick O'Malley's leg. This kid ain't the hardest kicker. He's more of like just an in-your-face pressure guy, but he's kind of small, and he's going to leave those openings to get clipped. That's why I'd be worried about for Moutinho.
And Yoel Romero may be the only human on the planet that's built like Chito Vera. So let's just get that out of the way. My guy in the chat here, James, saying Clint should do a who you got style rap freestyle. If you're into white rappers, I may be the whitest you've ever heard, and that would not make for good listening. So thank you for the suggestion. Maybe one day I'll do it, but I will just get roasted for even giving it a shot. All right, man. We've got 318 live viewers. We're getting to the good stuff here.
Hey, there's only 3 Beastie Boys, and rest in peace to my boy MCA, you know?
I feel you. Next fight up, man. We have got Irene Aldana taking on Yana Kunitskaya. Another fight that is very closely contested in the betting market. We've got Yana, who opened up about us minus 140 favorite, and Aldana opened up about a minus 140 favorite. Money has come in on the dog, Yana Kunitskaya. It's much, much tighter now. We got about minus 120, minus 125 for Irene Aldana. Even money, plus 100 over on Mrs. Thiago Santos. And this is a very interesting fight, man. Irene is 12-6, not the most impressive record in the world, but a fighter that I actually think shows a whole lot of upside. Yana Kunitskaya, I almost said a whole lot of prospect. That would not have worked out well. Yana Kunitskaya, 14-5. She has been around for quite some time and doing the damn thing, and has had her ups and downs. Irene Aldana, very long, very tall, good inside-outside leg kicks, high output, solid footwork. She's got a big right hand, man. This chick hits hard, and she is constantly trying to walk her opponents down, moving forward. She is willing to attack submissions off her back if she gets put in that position. She does look to sweep and submit, but she struggles with like trip takedowns. And in her last fight, she fought the ever great and powerful Holly Holm, and she was just physically outmatched. And I'll be honest, man, Holly Holm ruined the strike differential for Irene Aldana. Now she averages 5.52 significant strikes per minute and absorbs 5.97. But prior to Holly Holm's ass beating, it was much, much more competitive than that, because she got outstruck like 142 to 50 or some shit in significant strikes against Holly. That was a one-sided ass beating. Yana Kunitskaya on the flip side of this thing, she won her most recent fight against a common opponent in Ketlin Vieira with Ketlin in full back control. That was one of the most fun judges' decisions of my life, where they actually got it right, because even though Ketlin had her back, she was making her pay for every single moment that she had her back, and won the third round, even though she was in the less than favorable position, I guess we'll say. She's got very, very good use of underhooks, I've noticed, man. She is super strong up against the cage. She can bully people in that position. She throws constant knees to the body. And like when she fought Ketlin Vieira, she attacks constantly from everywhere. Lots of output. She averages 4.22 significant strikes per minute, absorbing 2.64. And I do want to get to this here. She averages 1.62 takedowns per 15 minutes with a 53% accuracy. So not a bad takedown accuracy and opportunity in this spot for one Yana Kunitskaya. But Irene Aldana actually has a very impressive 84% takedown defense rating. So I think even if Yana decides to go to the grappling, she's going to struggle to get this thing onto the floor, where maybe she's got an offensive wrestling advantage. I think Yana Kunitskaya's best path to victory here is those underhooks. If she can slow this thing down, pin Irene up against the fence, that's going to be the spot where I think she has the most opportunity to win this fight. However, Irene is getting better. She's constantly improving. She just got that first vet lesson. She took that big step up, went 25 minutes with Holly Holm, and you know how people who are legitimate prospects bounce back from losses like that. I fully expect to see a new, better version from Irene Aldana after she's tasted what the top end, the deep end of the skill set of the division looks like. And I'm kind of leaning towards Irene Aldana being able to stuff the takedowns, get herself off the cage, and then just have more success at striking range. And when she lands, win the optics, the bigger, harder, more impactful shots. And let's not forget, 2 of Yana's 5 losses have come by way of knockout. And if anything, Irene Aldana is one of the few women that is fully capable of winning via knockout. She's got legitimate power in this division. So I think she can win by decision. I think she can win by knockout. I think Irene Aldana is probably the side that I'm leaning to here in this fight, and I kind of agree with this minus 120. Now that the line has come down a little bit, I'm definitely interested. I'd love to hear your take on this one.
Man, so I'm actually on the opposite side here. And I'll tell you why. Because firstly, the biggest weakness in Yana Kunitskaya's game is when people take her down, obviously. She's better when she's on top, but when people take her down and get on top of her, that's when Yana Kunitskaya doesn't do her best. Well, good news. Irene Aldana doesn't shoot takedowns. So now we got a stand-up fight on our hands. And when you talk about, now her number is skewed, my friend Leslie Smith landed 169 strikes on her. Chukagian landed 105 strikes on her. Lucy Pudilova landed 105 strikes on her. Holly Holm landed 154 strikes on her. So basically what you're telling me is that Yana Kunitskaya is fighting a punching bag. So, and I'm not disrespecting Irene. I know offensively speaking, she's got great hands, but she gets hit way too much for my liking. I mean, look, we have let me count real quick. How many UFC fights does Irene have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have a 9-fight sample size that says she gets hit 6 times per minute. And you can't, and no one comment saying, oh, it's skewed because of the Holly Holm fight. No, it's not. I just listed like 3 other fights where she got hit over 100 times. So no, it's not skewed from the Holly Holm fight. And then when you want to talk about why it says her output is so high, let me list the times that she's landed over 100 strikes in a fight. Vanessa Mello, that's one time she landed over 100 strikes. Lucy Pudilova, no longer with the company, and Leslie Smith, walking punching bag. So she doesn't put up big numbers when she's fighting technically sound fighters, and I think that Yana Kunitskaya is pretty damn technically sound standing. It's just when people get on top of her, that's where an issue. Irene Aldana is not going to get on top of her. So as far as their offense, it's pretty even, but one gets hit significantly more than the other, and that's Aldana. So I got to go with and it's dog money. I got to go with Yana Kunitskaya to get a decision and get the upset.
That's fair. That's absolutely a fair point, man. And this one is one of those ones I would expect to get more disagreements on. You remember when it was like all coin flips and we practically agreed on the entire fight card? This one makes sense for us to be a little bit on opposite sides for, and I totally get what you're saying. I respect the opinion. I guess I'm kind of looking at Irene Aldana improving and making some adjustments here in this fight, but it's closely lined for a reason. I can absolutely see what you're saying.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, man. Not one that, not a hill I'm willing to die on. I guess we'll say that. There's no 5-unit bet coming on Irene Aldana this week, so no sweat here. We are getting a little bit further up the chain, everybody. What we've got next is the big boys. Bam Bam Tai Tuivasa taking on Greg, the Prince of War Hardy, and we have another very competitive line. Greg Hardy is a plus 110 underdog with minus 135 being the favorite Tai Tuivasa. And this is a fight that's really got me scratching my head, man. We've got some significant advantages, I feel like, on both sides of the page here. Tai Tuivasa is a human tank, right? He is a very, very Mark Hunt-esque with his stature. Very, very broad and heavy. Fires off big, nasty, heavy leg kicks. He's got big power in both of his hands. He's dangerous in that first round. When he's fresh, this guy can knock out an elephant. But he really slows down after round 1. He struggles with volume fighters. He struggles with savvy fighters, guys that can extend him and get him deep in the fight. And I've expected Tai to make some improvements and show up looking better, and he ends up getting a couple bottom-of-the-barrel heavyweights where he's just been able to tag and bag him. So we haven't been able to see whether or not he's really improved in his last couple of fights, which is kind of bugging me here. Greg Hardy, he's another guy that the UFC put on a plan, and they have led him along very carefully to get him to the point where he's maybe going to be able to be a prospect in the division. That got derailed in his last fight where he ran into someone who could use that savvy, mix in the ground game after he gassed out and got tired, and slowed him down and then made him pay in the second round. If you don't have that grappling advantage on Greg Hardy, though, he's actually pretty dang solid on the feet. And even though he's an asthmatic and, we've got the inhaler gate situation, he's able to go 15 minutes and he can put up some pretty decent strikes. I'm actually impressed with what I've seen besides the ground game out of Greg Hardy in his last couple of fights. It feels like he legitimately is a student of the game and he's getting better, even though he hopped careers a little bit late in the game. And, man, I'm kind of leaning towards the size of Greg Hardy, the durability of Greg Hardy being the deciding factor here. And I think he's a live underdog at this plus 110 number. We just got to worry about Tai Tuivasa lighting up his legs early in the first round, because I think Greg may actually have the sharper, crisper striking if you're not counting the leg attacks. I think his boxing is better than Tai Tuivasa's. And if his legs don't get chewed up early, I think he can turn the tables here, but it's a very close, very sketchy fight. What's your take on this one?
Yeah, no doubt. I think that Greg Hardy's been making improvements every single fight, even in the last fight against Tybura. I know the way it ended. He said no mas in that fight. That is what happened. But prior to that point, I thought he was looking good. But we know that there's is it a cardio issue? I mean, there's the inhaler gate, then there's what happened in that last fight. So now we have more than one example of, this guy gasping for air badly. And I've seen the guy like Tai Tuivasa go out there, win a decision against Arlovsky, which, what happens when you go to decision with Arlovsky. A lot of these young prospects have been losing split decisions, and Tai Tuivasa passed that test. He had a main event with Junior Dos Santos. So he's been in there with former champions. It's just, this guy Hardy is a very big, athletic, powerful individual, and he's kind of developed a bit of a point fighting style, which is interesting.
We thought he was this power puncher early on, right? And now all of a sudden he's a decision machine.
Yeah, Tuivasa is more of the power puncher here. Man, I'm kind of leaning with the experience of Tuivasa, man, and I think that when it gets down to the nitty gritty and who wants it more and all that, I feel like Tuivasa is willing to push harder. So I'm going to take him for that reason. Chop him down with the leg kicks and eventually go upstairs and find something. And if you get on top of Greg Hardy, it's going to be over. Like what happened in that Tybura fight was very, very alarming. So, yeah, I'm going to have to go with Tai Tuivasa here.
I kind of feel you there, and I actually agree with a little bit of what people are saying in the chat, that I think there's some value to be had on Greg Hardy by decision. It's a nice, big, fat, juicy number. But I hear what you're saying, Dan. The fact that somebody has that quit in them, you never want to really get behind someone that shows they're willing to just fold it up and take their ball home. They're done playing for the night. Tai Tuivasa is the guy that can make him quit like that on the feet. If he just keeps attacking those calf kicks, Greg Hardy was actually having a real problem against Yorgan De Castro, if you recall, until Yorgan hurt his foot. He suddenly stopped using those leg kicks, and that really opened the door for Greg Hardy to move in and take over in that fight. If he doesn't hurt his foot, maybe there's a different outcome when he fought Yorgan De Castro. And Tai Tuivasa, I don't see him hurting his foot. And even if he does, he'll probably keep kicking with it until it snaps off anyway. He'll use his own decapitated foot for his shoey at the end of the fight when he wins it. He's an absolute wild man. So another very close, very sketchy fight. I'm kind of leaning with Hardy by decision myself. But honestly, I can see Tai Tuivasa breaking this guy, especially if he's made even slight improvements in his game. All right, everybody, we are getting to it. This is the co-main event of the evening. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson taking on Gilbert Dorino Burns. And y'all know I'm on the Burns train. You all absolutely know I love this kid, Gilbert Burns. So it's a bit of a tough spot for me because I really have been trying to look at this fight objectively, man. We have got Gilbert Burns, who went on a rocket ship at 170, got himself a title shot, taking full advantage of COVID, and then got flatlined by Kamaru Usman after, honestly, a really good showing. He hurt Usman more than I think anybody else ever has, so he definitely lived or died by that first round KO. He's hell on wheels in round one, man. Gilbert Burns absolutely is filled out at 170. He's a world-class jiu-jitsu player. He stole Kamaru Usman's wrestling ability. He added some fast hands and big power to his arsenal. He took that world-class jiu-jitsu and parlayed it into world-class, well-rounded MMA. And he actually is pretty slick on the feet these days. He feints his way in, lots of forward pressure. He works well in the pocket, and he likes that low calf kick, man. He attacks the legs of his opponent, and he does work. He can finish you anywhere. Gilbert Burns is the definition of a finishing fighter. And Wonder Boy, he's kind of the exact opposite. I mean, he obviously can finish. This guy has power. He has striking. He can knock anybody out, absolutely. But he's also got that point fighting in his back pocket. He is more than willing to circle on the outside, stay at range, kick you to death, stay away from those big power shots. But the thing he does really well is he cuts angles, and he just shuts you down. That fight with Jeff Neal, I mean, just masterful from Wonder Boy to be able to outmove that kid and take away absolutely everything he's ever done. I've seen a lot of chatter online about people saying that Gilbert Burns is going to take Thompson down and that he's never faced takedowns, and that's really, the path to victory for him. But I went back and I looked, man. The only two people to take him down were Matt Brown in his second UFC fight all the way back in 2012, and then Woodley got him down one time each fight. And if anything, Woodley wasn't shot back when he fought Thompson. And if you can only keep this guy, if you can only get this fight into the ground one time against this guy as a wrestling-based champion back when you're arguably in your prime, I don't think that's too big of a knock on the guy, that he only gave up one takedown in each 25-minute fight to Tyrone Woodley. I know it wasn't exactly the game plan, but if Woodley felt like he had more of an advantage in that area, I also feel like he would have gone back to it and shot for more takedowns. So I think the fact that he has faced so few takedowns speaks to the fact that it's extremely difficult to close that distance and get in tight on him, and the few people that have gotten him down have had very little success in that area. I think Gilbert Burns' wrestling has come a long way. He probably can get this takedown, but I don't know if he can keep Woodley on the I don't know if he can keep Wonder Boy on the ground if he does get a takedown. I know Burns doesn't need a whole lot of time on the ground, but I don't think he's going to be able to put that offense to use the way that a lot of people would like to see. And as much as it pains me, Dan, it pains me, I'm really kind of looking at Wonder Boy. And I'm worried a little bit about the chin of Gilbert Burns, because we saw him in the Dan Hooker fight. He got clipped and put down bad. We've seen him be more durable up at 170 now, but the way he lost to Usman, that's one of those life-changing knockouts. That was a bad knockout. If he doesn't get this thing done and he doesn't get it done early, I think Thompson can cut angles and find a shot on him in the second and the third round the longer this fight goes. I feel like the under may not be a bad spot. Either Burns gets it done early or Thompson gets it done late, but I'm kind of leaning towards the Thompson side. How do you see this fight playing out?
Man, another interesting fight, obviously, because Gilbert Burns, completely new man at 170 pounds than he was at 55s. Obviously, the world-class jiu-jitsu. I mean, if he takes your back, if he gets on a limb, then chances are it's night-night. And not to mention, he's got that one-hitter quitter in his hands, too. He can put people down. Wonder Boy's been dropped. Wonder Boy's been knocked out before. So there's definitely a chance that Gilbert Dricus can come out here and catch him. I personally think that the takedown path is a little bit less likely. And I know it's easy to say that Wonder Boy hasn't faced too many takedowns recently, but when he did pretty damn decently, and I've seen him reverse position. I've also seen his toughness on the mat. Like, there was a moment when T Wood had a damn tight squeeze on that guillotine, and even though T Wood's not on the same jiu-jitsu level as a guy like Gilbert Dricus, no doubt about it, but Woodley, I mean, that squeeze looked like he was about to rip his fucking head off, and there's no quit in a guy like Wonder Boy. So I think the way this fight's going to play out is that I think Wonder Boy's actually going to kind of tool him up a little bit on the feet, man. And just like one thing that I always criticized Burns for back at 55s was his striking defense. He kind of eats too many clean shots, and I thought that would catch up to him. But man, props to him for getting in the position he's in, making it to that #1 contender spot, getting that title shot, even landing a nice shot on Kamaru in that fight. So he's definitely live for a knockout, but I definitely think this fight goes to decision, and it's going to Wonder Boy Thompson. I think that he's going to out-volume him. I think that You might even make him look silly at times. It's just my concern is, again, similar to some of these other fights we've been talking about, is, Wonder Boy's winning the minutes and then he gets dropped, and he gets dropped and then it erases all the points he put up and all the good work he had, and then you give that round to Gilbert. So little things like that is what I'm worried about. But I got Wonder Boy either via knockout or decision here.
Okay. We see eye to eye on this one again here, and man, I'm tempted to get down on Thompson as soon as possible because I missed the good number. I saw my guy MMA Locker Room got him at -130 when all that money flooded in on Burns earlier, and I wish I'd gotten to my tape because I would have jumped in. -140, -130, that sounds pretty damn good. A whole lot better than -175. So I'm with you there. I feel it on that one. I do want to shout out my guy Boston Nick MMA in the chat. He is doing his very best to get a shoey contest going with Tai Tuivasa. So everybody do me a favor, head on over to Boston Nick's Twitter, retweet his challenge to Tai Tuivasa, and let's see if we can't get the man doing a shoey with the legend himself. Man, I'm so pumped for this fight. I'm a fan of both guys, and honestly, I'm just looking for new blood. I know there's a lot of questions at 170 right now, and I think that Colby Covington is the next, arguably the best fight that we could make for Usman at this point, unless Thompson shows up and puts on a show on Saturday. I think if Thompson steals the show on Saturday, I think he gets his title shot. And I think seeing Wonder Boy versus Usman would be an incredible title shot. And then give me Masvidal versus Covington. Knock it out for a number one contender slot there. What do you think about the shape of the top of 170 real quick, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it really comes down to what Kamaru wants to do, because at the end of the day, he cleaned out the division. I mean, the only guy he hasn't fought is Wonder Boy, but aside from that, it's going to be rematches, right? Whether it's Colby, I mean, there is my boy Bilal Muhammad, but I think he probably needs one more win. Even Leon would be a rematch. He already beat Leon, so he's literally cleaned out the division. And I'm not sure how much longer he wants to do this, not because he's not capable, but more so because he made his money, put his stamp on the sport, did what he had to do. So, why not fight like Nate Diaz, get the biggest payday of your life, and ride off into the sunset and let these other guys figure it out. But look, if they want to do the Colby rematch, that's, one of the best fights in welterweight history. So if Wonder Boy wins this, you could do Wonder Boy and Kamaru. There's really tons of options that you can do here. So I'm excited.
I'm excited, man. I'm looking forward to it. I would love to see Wonder Boy get another crack at the title before he hangs it up, because let's face it, he is getting a little bit older. This may be his last run, his last shot at getting there, because if he doesn't make good on it now, I doubt that he ever works his way back to the title picture. So I kind of want to see him get the shot, but it's a bright future at 170 for sure. There's going to be a lot of fun to be had in the next couple of years.
No doubt, no doubt.
All right, everybody, it's about that time. It's about main event time. So let me go ahead and run one of our sponsor videos here, and then we will get into this bad boy.
Where's the bang, Preston? Come on.
I can't breathe.
Pub Sports Radio. Come find us in Southtown 101. Subscribe on YouTube and all platforms where podcasts are found.
Hey, if you guys like having fun, you are in the right place. We do live sports betting streams with every single major UFC organization. My boys, Boston Nick, MMA Locker Room, Billy Bills, Jacksonville Zoe, Danny Betts at the helm, always live streaming, hanging out with everybody. Big show. They're all there. We do Bellator, PFL, UFC. So if you just want to hang out, have some drinks, have some fun, live bet as the fights go on, make sure you tune in right here to Pub Sports Radio for each one of those big-ass giant events. Man, it is main event time, Dan. The trilogy, the rubber match. Conor freaking McGregor taking on Dustin the Diamond Poirier. We've seen it twice before, and on Saturday we get to see it again. And in an insane turn of fate, Conor McGregor is the underdog to Dustin Poirier. legitimately at this point, plus 100 across the board and climbing. Minus 120, minus 130s popping up on Dustin Poirier. And man, I said this last week when I didn't give like my full breakdown of the fight or anything like that. I talked about how this is the epitome of a recency bias spot, because we all know Conor McGregor brings more eyes to the sport than anybody else does. And we always know that the casual fans are going to run to the window and they're going to bet on Conor McGregor. We always see that swing, Thursday, Friday, Saturday leading up to the fights. Tons of money just floods in on McGregor. This may be the first time that the opposite is going to be true, because the casual fans just saw Conor McGregor get his ass knocked out in the second round. And I think we're seeing the opposite effect. I think we're seeing the casual bias of people thinking he's washed, he's done, it's over, and just a flood of money coming in on Dustin Poirier, because that's the most recent thing that they have seen. I want to let you lead this one off, Dan. I want to hear your thoughts, the breakdown of the matchup. How do you feel about this trilogy? How do you think it's going to play out? And especially, what do you think about this number we're getting for the main event?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's so many things to say about this fight that I even had to write down like some of the points I wanted to talk about. Firstly, McGregor is a legend, and I'll always be grateful for what he did to the sport, the amount of eyes he brought on our sport, and also his unique fighting style. He wasn't a guy who was out here humping people's legs. He was out here knocking people out, and to be the first he is the first simultaneous champ, correct?
Correct.
I know my boy BJ Penn, my boy Randy Couture, they were champs, but not simultaneous. So, but my boy Henry Cejudo was the first simultaneous to defend both, I believe. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. So look, McGregor, he's a legend. He's accomplished everything. I mean, his goal was to be the champ. You did that in 2016. I mean, he's the man. McGregor's style uses a lot of energy. So it's one of those things where, you talk about, McGregor's in amazing shape this time. Like, firstly, he's always in amazing shape, but secondly, it's one of those things that he comes out firing out the gate. That's always been his style. So him pacing himself more now or whatever, that's just not how he fights. He comes out to kill, and that's why the fans love him. That's why he's in the position he's in addition to the fact that he's an unbelievable talker too. But there's like so many misconceptions about their first fight. Like the whole story about the fight was the calf kicks. It makes it seem like it was a calf kick TKO or something, and it wasn't. I mean, I'm pretty damn sure you hit him with a check right hook and then unloaded like a 10 or 20 punch combo on him. That's not calf kicks. That's punches to the chin. So another thing in terms of it not just being calf kicks is that there were a lot of weapons that Poirier used in how he approached the fight. And real quick, because I know the way I'm about to talk, it might sound like, oh, I hate Conor. I bet Conor against Chad. Excuse me. I bet Conor against Chad Mendes. I bet Conor against Jose Aldo. And I even bet Conor against Dustin Poirier the first time. So I used to fuck with Conor hard, man. Certain things I don't like, the bus incident and, hitting old men at bars but none of that matters when we're talking about betting on fights. All that matters is a stylistic matchup. But, everyone's saying that's just the calf kicks, but I saw a beautiful check right hook from Dustin Poirier at the end of the combinations. I saw a takedown in the first round start to get him a little tired. I saw some clinch work. I saw proper pacing. And then I saw calf kicks clinch. So it was a whole variety of weapons that I saw. And McGregor's already accomplished everything. Like, what else is there for McGregor to do? You've done it all. Like, what, you're going to be champ again? Yeah, okay. He ain't touching gold again, I'll tell you that. Whereas Dustin Poirier still has the hunger. He still has that one final goal he wants to accomplish, which is to, be the undisputed champ. So the early going is always going to be the most dangerous against Conor McGregor, just because of how hard he comes out, the firepower on those shots, his accuracy, his timing, his precision. His arsenal too, man. It's not just a left hand. He's got some spin kicks. He's a very educated striker, and when he's fresh, he's a serious problem. I'm just thinking here that not that it necessarily has to go past the 7-minute mark for Poirier to have success, because you know that Poirier's got the most knockouts in lightweight history, right? So like Poirier can end this early too. Like it's not that he has to just wait it out, but it would behoove him to like I said, take him down, clinch him up, start to kind of take away the velocity and the force of that left hand. And now that Poirier is confident enough that he's taken it, I'm very curious to see how he approaches this one. If he comes in a little more reckless, which may cost him, or if he kind of plays it similarly, which, the end goal is to kind of slow him down a bit. Now, so like I said, don't be surprised if Poirier has early success. But I got a question. How does Conor come back from being knocked the fuck out 6 months ago? How's his confidence? How's his chin? Because one thing about Conor McGregor is he's one of those guys with the invincible aura. And you just got knocked out. You just got put on airplane mode, to quote Dustin Poirier. So, how's the most when your confidence takes a hit, that affects everything else. And also, you want to take it a step further. So when Conor McGregor became the champ in 2016 with that brilliant performance against Eddie Alvarez, and that was around the time when Dustin Poirier got knocked out by Michael Johnson in 2016. So look at how their careers have gone since 2016. Conor McGregor is 1-3, and in those 3 losses, he's been stopped in all those losses. I included the Floyd one. I mean, he took some headshots in that one. He got finished. Dustin Poirier is 7-1 since 2016, with the sole loss being the Khabib. And one guy tapped to something that wasn't locked in. The other one tapped. When Dustin's choke against Khabib, I mean, like Khabib, like if Dustin didn't tap, Dustin was going to sleep. Whereas if Conor didn't tap, he would. It wasn't even locked in. It was a crank. So Conor kind of low-key said no mas in that fight. And then basically their careers have gone in opposite directions, man. Conor definitely made more money than Poirier. So you got to congratulate him there. And I'm talking about since 2016. But since that point, Poirier has achieved more glory and more respect in the sport. So what do you value more? McGregor isn't doing any media for this fight besides the fight week media, and it used to be a case like, and I'm not even talking about, he's not even on the early embedded episodes, and he used to preach about how it's different when you're at this level with all the media obligations, all the stress. It's not just showing up at the gym no more. So he used to really be the guy that would let you know, like, hey, not only am I going to show up and kick ass, but I'm going to do all the media obligations too. Like that was his thing, that he could outwork everyone. But now he's not doing media anymore, and like now he's basically becoming the guy that he used to talk shit about. Like when he talked shit about Joseph Duffy, about how he moved countries and he changed teams and he did that and he did this, he did that. Conor McGregor's moving countries. Conor McGregor's training. Like Conor McGregor's doing all the things that he used to speak against. So it's one of those things now where I think Poirier is ready to become a world champion, man. Listen, Poirier's paid his dues, and we can talk about all the outside narratives like I'm doing, but let's talk about the actual in-fight. Look at the numbers Poirier can put up. If you want evidence that Poirier can fight 5 rounds hard, go watch the Justin Gaethje fight. I know he knocked him out in the 4th, but when you throw over 300 strikes in a 4-round fight, like as it lasted to the 4th, that shows me you got the output and the volume. And he was taking some hard leg kicks. Another example. McGregor took those leg kicks. He didn't like them. Poirier took leg kicks from the hardest kicker in the division, Justin Gaethje, knocks him out in the 4th round. You got questions about what kind of volume or pace Poirier can maintain over 5 rounds. Well, what about the Max Holloway fight? Isn't Max Holloway the output king in the UFC? Dustin Poirier went out there 5 rounds, kept up that pace, that volume. So McGregor can simply not keep up that pace for 5 rounds. I don't know if it's because he's so fast twitch or what the deal is. I mean, it's like that example we always give. If you're driving on the highway, you pedal to the metal 100 miles per hour. I mean, it's only science that you're going to have to stop for gas. Like you're not going to get more gas by pushing that pedal 100 miles per hour to the metal. So it is what it is. So look, I think that Poirier, it's got a lot of ways to win this. I think he can mix in takedowns. I think that he can knock him out again. It's really the check right hook was a bigger weapon than the calf kicks. I mean, in my opinion. But also, I don't be surprised if he submits Conor McGregor. So I think that as long as Dustin doesn't go down early, I think, look, if it comes down to who wants it more, Conor McGregor ain't the type to dig deep. Like when people talk about the examples of Conor McGregor overcoming adversity, like, you know what examples they give? They gave Chad Mendez laying in his guard and landing one elbow that cut him. Like that's the adversity. They talk about, Nate Diaz is so rich that he doesn't give a fuck anymore, that he'll literally just point at you in fights. And to him, it's about street honor and not about winning a judge's decision. So, I mean, people act like Conor overcame adversity in that second Diaz fight. I recall Conor coming out there and knocking Nate Diaz down multiple times in the early going, and it was Nate that overcame adversity in that fight. But so Conor ain't like, look, if things are going perfect for Conor, and props to him, but as soon as, both guys start to get tired, it's time to dig deep and see who wants it more. Poirier wins that fight all day. So I think that Poirier is going to come out here, weather this early storm, mixing the takedowns, clinch him up against the fence, and either submit him or knock him out this time. So, yeah, and I don't think it's as simple as adjusting to the calf kicks. Like, what about adjust to the right hook, adjust to the takedowns, adjust to – it ain't just a story of the calf kicks. And I'll say this, the calf kicks will still be there this time too. So I got Dustin Poirier. I want to say and still because I feel like he's truly the champion, but, he'll get to settle his differences with Charles Oliveira later.
Hey, I was very much in the camp there, man, that when this fight first came around, I said that this is the real fight for the belt. Like, I know there's a lot of people out there, can't disrespect what Charlie O has done. He won that fight. He's put his time in. He's paid his dues. But I really do believe this is the fight that should have been for the belt. Dustin legitimately chose to take the trilogy fight instead of going for that strap. So when this is said and done, very smart. Take that payday. But as soon as this fight is over, whoever wins this thing is the number one contender, and I truly believe that belt should be around Dustin Poirier's waist right now. Man, you put a lot of info out there, and it's hard to discredit or disagree with absolutely any of it. What I'm on in this fight is the overs. I got a bit of a controversial take on this one. A lot of people, after seeing that first fight especially, are hammering that under. I know you mentioned, what kind of shape, what kind of durability are we going to see from Conor McGregor, the confidence, can he come back from that kind of a knockout just a few months later? And I think that Conor's durability has never been something that's been in question for me personally. It's always been his heart. It's always been his gas tank. It's been his will to continue. He's a great hammer. He is a bad nail, and we know that about Conor McGregor. But what he did when he fought Nate Diaz in the trilogy is he realized this guy at 170 is too much. I'm not going to be able to knock this dude out at 170. So he went for a more point fighting style. I know he knocked down Nate Diaz a couple times. I know he hurt him a couple times, but he figured out that he was not going to be able to put Diaz away up a weight class. These guys at 145 were different men. Conor McGregor had the speed and power advantage, and he clipped Dustin Poirier, who was probably cutting too much weight at that point in his career. Since they've moved up to 155, I actually think Conor's a little too small at 155, and we've seen that with the people he's been fighting. He's been out-muscled, he's been outsized, he's been outmatched. Dustin Poirier has filled out much better at 155 than Conor McGregor has, and like you mentioned with the Justin Gaethje fight, he is willing to take hell and will still walk through it to get that win off of you. I think Conor McGregor, we've seen, he's posting the pictures of him riding his bike. I think we're seeing No, I know. I'm going full tinfoil hat. I should have brought my tinfoil out here to wrap around my head for this one. I think that Conor McGregor may be understanding that he's going to have to go back to what he did with Diaz. I think he's going to have to use his speed advantage. He's going to have to use that technical striking if he has any hope of winning this fight, because you are not knocking out Dustin Poirier. It just does not happen. He's eaten the best shots anybody can give, and it does not matter. His durability is unquestionable. And I think if Conor McGregor comes out and pours it on him in first round, I know all the people supporting Conor McGregor are saying first round or bust. I think he's actually going to take a more slimmed down, speed point fighting approach to this fight and extend that fight. And I was on the overs in the first fight, and I thank my lucky stars I cashed it, because it was about 2 seconds that it squeezed over that first round 1.5. And I think this fight is going to look very, very similar, except Conor will be focused on his opponent instead of looking forward at boxing Manny Pacquiao after he walks through Dustin Poirier for a second time. I really feel like Conor McGregor was sniffing his own farts in that first one. I think he believed his own hype in the first one and thought that when he touched Dustin Poirier, he would fall very similarly to how he did in the first fight. I think in the trilogy that Conor McGregor comes much more prepared. I think ring rust is a thing. I think he's going to look to adjust his style in this one, and I think that extends the fight. Whether or not Conor does well with that approach, we'll find out on Saturday. I do agree with you. The longer this fight goes, the more it favors Dustin Poirier. I am definitely leaning towards Dustin Poirier being the winner in this one, but I'm laying the chalk on the over 1.5 because I think it gets into the third or the fourth round, believe it or not, and both these guys have kind of a more risk-adverse approach. You and I talked about it last time, how every fight is different. Every fight is not the same as the last, and we have seen two fights that were similarly paced with different outcomes, and now both these guys are going to be fighting with the trilogy in mind. Neither of these guys are going to want to lose this thing. So I think Dustin knows the deeper this fight goes, the more it favors him. So I think that's going to be in his back pocket. And I think Conor McGregor is going to see an angle for a win. He's more sticking to his speed and his point fighting. I don't think he's going to come out and look to force a gunfight because he lost it the last time around. I doubt he goes right back to the well with that one. So I'm hitting the over 1.5 pretty hard. I've played the over 2.5 at plus money. And then, man, I put my tinfoil hat on and I played the over 3.5. I'm not playing the 4.5 where the fight goes to distance because I know how Conor McGregor looks in round 4 and round 5. I don't know that it makes it the full way, but I think I'm going to roll the dice and play the overs on this one.
Good luck.
I appreciate that. I'm going to need it. I know that is a bit of a hot take, and I'm going to need that luck, so I do appreciate it. My guy Locker Room apparently rocking with me on that over 1.5. But man, if I had to, got to pick a side, it's a pick show. What are we doing here? I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna say Dustin Poirier. I think his durability really is the difference maker here at 155. I don't think that Conor McGregor is going to be able to knock him out early, and because of that, he's going to have the entire fight to go ahead and take this thing over. And when it gets to the nitty gritty, when the chips are down, Dustin Poirier is the guy that walks through the fire. So I completely agree with you on that point, and I do think that Dustin Poirier is going to be the one that gets his hand raised at the end of this thing.
I cannot wait, man. I mean, dude, it's annoying how like people online are like trying to be like, it's Conor week and it doesn't even feel like it. It's like, shut the fuck up. You're all gonna be watching. Like, and not only that, not only is it Conor McGregor week, dude, it's Dustin Poirier week. Like, why doesn't Dustin Poirier get the respect he deserves? Like from fans like me that have been watching since day one, like, I mean, he's like a hero to us. But let's talk about these numbers, man. I mean, when you talk about a guy like Dustin Poirier, he's interim lightweight championship. And first of all, when I talk about interim lightweight champion, because people say, oh, it's not undisputed. Yeah, but for example, when you talk about Tyron Woodley's reign, look at the people Tyron Woodley won. Look at the people Tyron Woodley defended his belt against. Darren Till, not a champion. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, much respect, never touched gold. Damian Maia, never touched gold. But Dustin Poirier beat Max Holloway while he was a champion. So at least Dustin beat a champion in his interim title fight. So I wouldn't discredit his credentials as far as that's concerned. Fight of the night 7 times, Dustin Poirier. Submission of the night 1 time versus Max Holloway. Performance of the night 4 times, and he's tied for the most knockouts in lightweight history. So put some motherfucking respect on the Diamond's name.
Dustin Poirier is the absolute man, and I hope after going back-to-back on Conor McGregor, he finally gets the respect he deserves. And, man, a should-be champion, the uncrowned king versus the kid holding the belt, champ versus champ, in my opinion. That'll be one hell of a fight coming up next when he gets the chance to take on Charlie O.
Yes, sir. Man, it's just Charles Oliveira and Dustin Poirier is a fight I've always wanted to see for years. 2 guys that paid their dues, 2 guys that are exciting, 2 guys that are finishers, 2 guys that hold records, and 2 guys that have been in the UFC for damn near almost like, I was going to say 2 decades, but, a decade and a half, right? Like, I feel like they've been in the UFC that long. So it's pretty badass to see.
Can't wait, man. Can't wait. Thank you so much for getting in here on the show and talking fights with us, man. We always appreciate having you on. Brace yourself for the influx of casual hate coming in the comment section for whatever take you were on for this one. Appreciate you spending the night with us here, Dan. As always, man, huge respect. If you got anything to shout out, let the people know where they can find you. The floor is yours, my guy.
No, I mean, listen, I'm just appreciative that, that there's haters here, because if we were having the show and no one gave a shit, then I'd be pissed off. Then I'd be like, yo, what the fuck? We're wasting our time. But the fact that, this is the kind of sport where we're so passionate, man. We love this sport. We're rooting for people. We're rooting against people. We have our hot takes. Like, we feel so strongly about our beliefs. So that's a beautiful thing. So thank you to the haters. Thank you to our more importantly, thank you to our fans. I mean, you guys have had our back for so long, and keep supporting Clint. And I appreciate you all supporting me. And Clint, obviously, thank you for having me on. I'm down to do this anytime, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. So thank you.
My pleasure, man. We'll definitely get you back on again soon. Love having you. The fans love having you. We really appreciate everybody tuning in. We capped out at like 380, I want to say, 380 live viewers at one point in the show. So thank you all very much for spending your Monday evenings with us here on the podcast. Do us a favor. Smash that like. As my boy Nick says, we be pubbing 7 days a week here on Pub Sports Radio. Make sure you check out all the other free shows that we've got going on here on this channel. And hey, you can reach us in the comments below. You can hit us up both on Twitter. And as always, when I lock in any official bets, I'll be tweeting them out. So that's the best place to get a hold of me and see what my official action is. The only thing I have bet is the overs in the main event as of now. So I will definitely get the other bets out there that I decided to make and settle on here in the next couple of days. Good luck, everybody. Good luck on all that degenerate action. It is Conor McGregor fight week, so buckle in. We all know shit gets crazy leading up to a Conor McGregor fight. I cannot wait. Have a wonderful week. Good luck on all your degenerate action, and let's roll.